do a little recap of the here in my kingdom, my palace. The open mic. We had our first KGB open mic Monday last night in the Red Room up in the penthouse level in the Sky Lounge at KGB Red Room. And it was really a wonderful event. I filmed the whole thing. I actually got kind of a pretty nice video of it, so I'll be posting that next time I'm on the Wi-Fi. Um, Probably sometime this week, maybe. Uh, and it was successful artistically. Hopefully, they let us kind of. I think it's going to be the kind of thing that's going to have to grow. The weather was not really in our favor. I don't know. For a few of my gigs this year, I've had not great weather. And it kind of, like that gig at Castelli with Yvonne Le Bien and Chava, the weather kind of was bad. It was raining and kind of thunderstorming. Last night it was the same thing. It was like it was nice all day, and then at like 5 p.m., 6 p.m., it started to like downpour and thunderstorm. So it's like the last days of summer. You know, the equinox I think is Thursday. So I think people maybe went out this weekend. And to be honest, like I really got off kind of on the wrong foot with the promotion. I really should have made the flyer a lot sooner. That was a kind of a big mistake actually. And well, the other thing was the KGB didn't share the flyer because and like it's understandable they want the Monday night series, which is like a long running signature series there, the Monday Night Poetry series, which was started by Star Black in the 90s, is 7 p.m. on the second floor in the regular KGB bar, which is actually like the literary bar. And so they don't want people to confuse the two series, and they don't necessarily want to detract from that audience, and also they don't want, I mean, I don't want to step on any toes obviously. So I wasn't necessarily, we're I think we're still trying to figure out kind of like the flow of the evening, and uh, you know they're super cool. Uh, Deal, you know, emailing with them, going back and forth. They're super cool, and I'm super grateful that they're even letting me try this. And so, but I mean, it's also the culture of Manhattan is so economic now, and they have a certain expectation, and I understand that absolutely. But I think we can find a common ground. My goal would be to get as many people in there as possible. Ideally, we could get 50, 60, 70 people in there on a Monday night who want to perform or who want to watch performances. And from that 50 people, let's say, they'll make enough money to make it worth their while. You know, I'm fine making an announcement and letting it be known that there's a two drink minimum and all of that stuff, but like you can't throw out I don't know what they think that they have to make, but my vision of it is it's Monday night, right? Monday night is the night that they typically give to poetry. It's typically an off night in bars and restaurants. It's after the weekend. People are going back to work. They don't typically go out on Monday nights, they stay home. And so a lot of times they'll give Monday night to poetry just because they know they're not going to make any money anyway. So poets will take it because it's poetry, they'll come out for that. And so my pitch of it would be you're taking a night in a room. To be honest, Monday nights they aren't even using the room. The room is empty. And so all they really have to do is get a bartender who's willing to do a shift. And we have to make it worth their while. Essentially. I mean, otherwise the room would just be empty. That's the way that I'm looking at it. Like, we're not necessarily costing them money, as far as I can see, to be there. And so, in some sense, it's just putting more money in their pocket that wasn't there before. It's creating potentially, 4 times a month, that's a few extra $1,000 a month potentially, just for because I want to do it, and if a bartender can make enough to make it worth their while. And so I know that they have certain goals, but I also think we should be realistic. And a lot of times with live performance, I think these venues shoot themselves in the foot because they have this huge, especially in Manhattan, like Bowery Electric was like this. They have this huge expectation where they want to charge people $15 to get in, or the drinks are super expensive and this and that. And it's like, let's get some people in here. If you got 50 people in here, you'll make money. If you got no people in here, you'll make no money. So like, let's make it hospitable to artists. Like, let's make it a cool hangout. Let's make it a buzzy kind of place. I want to make it like a must. You got to go see the show. This is the Monday night in downtown Manhattan. There's nothing else going on. It's a great fucking facility. The thing that I was most nervous about was just running it, because I've never really done that before. I don't typically do sound or like set people's guitars up or any of that kind of shit. So I was a little nervous about how am I gonna, are the microphones gonna feed back? That was the thing that I was like, and to be honest, I was super comfortable there. The moment I was super comfortable with the board and the lights and all of it. It was very straightforward and it went well. The bartender was super great, and I set up a Spotify playlist on their iPad, so she let me pick the music even, which was amazing. I had to put it together real fast, but I'm trying to set a certain vibe, with the night, and so that's really cool. I mean, this is something I've wanted to do for so long. I've wanted to host an open mic night for like 15 years. And so to do it in this place, that's like, it couldn't be a better location. It couldn't be a better pedigree or brand or whatever you want to call it. It couldn't be a better facility. I mean, just everything about it is perfect. I had it sort of an epiphany moment back in April when I did the open mic that they do once a month. The Monday series does it, but it's on Wednesday. They do it once a month. Jada Gordon runs it. She's amazing. And I was up on the stage nearing the end of my poem, and I sort of took the microphone off the mic stand, and I thought, I'm on Seinfeld. Like, this is exactly like the fucking Seinfeld stage. And I just felt very at home. The curtain, the size of the stage, the piano, it all feels very right to me. And so, I mean, I wish I would have gotten this up running sooner, but I'm really glad that we're doing it now. I mean, to be honest, going into it, I was sort of like, I don't know what the hell's going to happen. Like, I did my best as far as, like, trying to get people to come out, trying to promote it. I don't want to discourage people with the 2-drink minimum, because I know that a lot of people that would come perform, if there's a lot of pressure on them in that way, I mean, to be honest, a beer is $9. That's the cheapest drink they have. It's like, if you're going to have a 2-drink minimum, let's get a beer in there that's $5 or $6 or something. It's like, it's Monday. Like, I understand. I'm trying to get people to buy drinks. That's why we're there. We're there to have a good time. But, like, if we want that to happen, we got to get an audience of people who will pay that. And so my pitch of it would be, it's a free show, and it's a real taste of New York. It's kind of that old New York. There's no cover charge. You want to come in, you want to see performance art, you want to see edgy, you want to see comedy, you want to see interesting avant-garde stuff, you want to see smart poetry, you want to see... That was one of the things that was super cool about it, was just shifting through the moods. It's like, you come to this open mic, and so we can get what Matthew Silver, we were sort of talking afterwards, because he came out, about the tourist audience. Like, to be honest, yeah, like, in Manhattan, that's a big part of the audience, and I don't know why they go for all this cheesy jazz shit. Like, most of the stuff that they have in these clubs downtown are like these just corny jazz. It's like La La Land jazz. And like that's what it is. That's the new New York. That's the money. That's the nouveau riche. That's just bad taste and bad style and tech and all that. And Great Gatsby lawn party. And that's kind of, to be honest, that's kind of what the Red Room is set up to do. Like, people with money, they like that vibe for some reason. And those are the people who will pay $15, $20 for a fucking drink. A bunch of performance artists or poets, the idea is that they are the entertainment. They're what's interesting. They're what's authentic. And so I want to do a great show. I want to make something that's entertaining and it's sort of a variety show or a vaudeville. Not just poetry, not just comedy, not just, but let's get these artists talking. Let's get them in the same room. Let's get them looking at each other. Let's get them I mean, that's not to say that there aren't that open mic at Music Inn is kind of spiritually similar, or the one at Under St. Mark's. Um, the Red Room is just such a good room, and it's free to get in. So those other ones are $5. So if I can create buzz, if I can create an audience of people that come out, then I can start to charge money, and then we can expect to make more money. But at least in the initial stages, building an audience, I think just getting people talking about it, getting people be like, oh man, I went to this open mic last Monday, KGB Red Room, and it was amazing. The host was great. It was liberating, fun. It was actually an entertaining. A lot of these open mics, particularly in comedy world, like one thing I did notice, okay, of all the different respective forums where I publicized it, and to like I said, I was bad about getting the word out. I was really late to making the flyer. I didn't make a flyer till last Wednesday, so, and there were certain things like KGB, they didn't want people to get confused, and they want certain things on the flyer like 2-drink minimum, 21 and over. So, to be honest, those two things right there, it's like, I'd like to be able to get NYU kids who want to perform to be able to come to the open mic. So right there, most of that's out. Not because I have any particular interest in them, but if we want to be realistic about who the artists are in Manhattan at this point, anybody who's young, who lives below 14th Street is probably a fucking student, to be honest. Or rich and famous. Like, possibly both, if you're one of the Olsen twins or something. So it was super cool to have Jonathan Aprea come out, and James came out, which was awesome. They were sitting right in the front, and Matt from Poetry Project. And then mix them up, Matthew Silver, like I said. Of all the places I publicized it, the Comedy Forum, I got 35 likes from the Comedy Forum. I don't get 35 likes on anything ever. I think they were just enthusiastic to perform at KGB because they probably are aware of it, and like, it's near Eastville Comedy Club. They're right next to each other. It's got a certain cred and a certain cachet, but it's like, it's not the same kind of like soul grinding slog that a lot of these comedy open mics are. Like, my understanding, the vibe that a lot of these comedy open mics that I've been to is like, these guys are just trying to get their reps in. They want stage time. They're paying for stage time, and like, they're, everybody in the audience is other comedians waiting to go up. They're either on their phones, or they've either seen the jokes before, or they're not a real audience. So I think that was another thing. There was some promise with this event that there might be a real audience, or a different audience than like the just other comedians. Like, that was my desire with it. I want to get a melding and a synergy and an overlap between different scenes where poets come out, comedians come out, musicians come out, what have you. They all bring their people. Billy Pedlo sent a couple people out, which was amazing. A couple of people I asked how they heard about it or whatever. Billy Pedlo apparently was the. The other thing was they're doing. So thanks to Billy Pedlo, mad respect. The other thing is, well, KGB Monday is doing their open mic on Wednesday. So a lot of the people that I know who are poets are probably going to go to the Wednesday one, and they're probably not going to do both. Not 2 days apart, not if they have to buy two drinks. So that may have taken a little from our audience. I mean, it was mostly poets, but if it had been only poets, I think we had 12 people on the list. And I'd say it was like 5, 6 poets and like maybe 4 or 5 comedians. There was no music, which to be honest was kind of a relief because, I mean, once the show got rolling, the first half hour or something, I was a little nervous. And things were going really fast. Like, people were just going up and kind of getting done real fast. So I was like, this is going to be over in, like, less than an hour. Like, I don't know. In the back of my head, I'm just like, KGB, I don't know how they're going to feel about this. But about half an hour in, I kind of relaxed and started to have a good time. I didn't want it necessarily to be some big thing for the first show because I didn't necessarily know what was going to happen. It was sort of a dress rehearsal. I wanted to just get in the space, work with the mics, do a real show, and there were 20 or 30 people there, I'd say. Probably 20 people. There were people that came out just to watch, to be honest. Like, there were more than a few people that came out just to watch. I asked people I kept asking if people wanted to sign up, if they wanted to perform. The comedians are the ones who are kind of the most defensive about, well, this is weird. Like, I got to go after a poet or whatever. And like I was saying, I like the kind of back and forth between the moods. I like that a poet gets up, like my friend Prince McNally, who I met at the reading on Sunday at Elizabeth Street Garden. I like when he goes up and reads something super important and super like oratorical and passionate that's like very important, politically and shit like that, and very like meticulous and and full of energy. And then I like to have a comedian go up after that, but the comedians are the ones who are like kind of in the shallow end of things philosophically. And so a lot of their stuff does kind of get into stupid, like fart, poopy. And so I think they feel a little bit like, oh, God, I got to do something that's like a little heavier. Like there was this one guy who was a comedian who was wearing a shirt that said, it was the Bada Bing logo from Sopranos. And he got up and he's like, I'm not even going to try to do my act. And he did a monologue from Hamlet. He did, oh, what a rogue and peasant slave am I think. And I don't know. People are always doing Shakespeare in front of me. I bring it out of people. And he went through the crowd and shit. It was awesome. It was great. That's the kind of shit that I want to happen. I want to have Matthew Silver. He was signed up second. Or no, this guy Scott Ladowdy, who is, I think he was friends with Billy Pedlo. He came in specifically to come to this, and he read. It was great. Like the first few people, it was a little like we're kind of getting started. The room wasn't packed full of people or anything. There was really only, like I said, 20, and it's a big room. It's long and like, these open mic Wednesdays they do once a month. There's 40 or 50 people there. Like there's a lot of people who come out to read. There's a lot of people who come out to watch. Like the room is full. It was like the room was a little quiet. I didn't necessarily set the vibe completely correct with my initial piece. I did a good thing. My cues were really on point. My sound cues with fucking Larry Sanders theme. I nailed my sound cues and my recording and everything. I wasn't really that high. I didn't smoke beforehand because I wanted to be kind of cognizant. I wanted to, I wore my suit, I dressed, I wanted to be like sharp in case anything went wrong. I didn't, I've been kicked out all these venues, so like I don't want to break anything, and I don't want the venue to like think I'm crazy and not want to have me back. So I didn't necessarily want to go completely nuts the first 5 minutes and have him go, whoa, this guy's nuts. He broke the piano, you know, this is over. So I was trying to just run the show and not really. To me, I was trying to make it more about the fucking acts. I was going to do a little thing at the beginning to just sort of warm it up, and then I was going to really try to be off stage. But as it went on, I was like, I got to do something because there was only 12 people on the list, and like I had to kind of I don't know, you do have to kind of like be the glue of the thing. You're the host, and so this is something I wanted to talk about at the thing. You're the host, so you are the tie between all the different people who show up. You're the one they know. The poets, the comedians, the musicians, they know you're the center of the wheel or whatever. And there were a couple Eno things that related to it. I was listening to this Lenny Kaye interview, and he was talking about this. I think I mentioned this. Is the scenius. I'm trying to create a scenius. I'm trying to create a scene, really, of just interesting artists and a certain maybe aesthetic. I don't know, of just the best open micers, maybe a little bit outsider, maybe a little bit raw, similar to like the Slooge thing, I guess, but just like doing it in public, doing it in venues. I mean, even if KGB were to not necessarily want to do this, I could probably take it somewhere else. If I can just get it up and running, I think it's going to be a good series. I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be special. And, it took a little while to kind of get rolling last night, but Matt Silver went on third, and having him in the mix is just good because he just breaks the energy all up in the room. He kind of just whatever ice, after I go up, whatever ice is left to break, Matthew Silver's going to do. And I do think that he hits the target like super hard. I don't necessarily, he is a great performer and like an artist with what he does. And like having him in the mix just like gives it a certain, it's like having fucking honey and locusts, you've got this crazy fucking person from the middle of the desert coming in. So that's part of the vibe, But these comedians also, they have to kind of level their game up because they rely on laughs so much. I want to kind of get them off that and get them more just kind of talking about something real. I think they can be funny more if they're just themselves, rather than going in with preloaded material, which often has a lot of stereotypes and shit and just toxic stuff. It's like, they're funny people. That's why they think they're comedians. So, like, let's just try and get them to be funny and smart at this thing. So, I don't know. I'm not sure if the guys who came last night are going to be scared away or come back. I don't know. To be honest, the comedy thing and these open mics in particular is a particular enclave of like male energy, and it is kind of toxic, and it's like a refuge for that, and I'm not trying to be that. I do want to be a safe space, and I want to be a woke space, and I want it to be inclusive and queer friendly and all of that. So I want to focus on that, rather if the comedians need to come to that. And not in some cheap way. They should figure out a smart way to do it. Rather than just being reactionary, kind of like smartasses about it. Like, you should be able to do your act in any place and not offend people And like you should there a lot of the smartest fucking literature and shit. To me, they're poets reading their work, writers reading their work, comedians speaking, performance artists, musicians, lyrics, rappers, whatever. They're very close. In fact, I think they all blur. This is another Eno thing. The in between spaces, right? It's something I've talked about a lot. So part of the open mic is to blur and get people, get poets. I don't want poets to feel like they have to perform, but everybody should just do their best. And there shouldn't be these boundaries where it's like, this is a poetry event, this is a fucking, that's one of the most beautiful things about the marathon, right? Is you see musicians, you see poets, you see weird dancer performance art, you see avant-garde music, you see folk music, you see all kinds of stuff, right? So the open mic, it's eclectic community. That's the goal. And just getting people vibing. And so if everybody's doing their best, like that's how the Sludge open mics were in the basement. Once again, I do think it's comedians mostly that kind of rub up against the hardest with other things. They're the ones that sort of are the most uncomfortable with themselves and are looking for something from the audience. Like I said something on stage last night about how the comedians are actually sadder than the poets, and people laughed, and like I think poets are a little more self-sustaining. They're a little more self-contained. They don't need stuff like when they don't go up and read to like get validation from the audience necessarily in the same way that comedians do. Like comedians, if there's no laughter, they turn hostile quickly. Poets, it's almost always like a good experience for them to read, and the audience is always supportive, and like I think it's just cathartic for them to share and to do it. Whereas comedians, it's like if you're not laughing at them, it's like, well, fuck you people. And it's like that's just a bad vibe. So also with this, I think that's part of just like the woundedness of the comedian, but like let's try to get them to a healthier place and to a better relationship with the audience. Like bombing, is it really that bad? Like if you have fun with it, I think that's a better place to be. And I don't know, as a performer, I think you just have to acknowledge there are these different levels, there's these different reactions. This is something I was talking about with Matthew Silver. Like you have to be comfortable with silence. You have to be comfortable on stage just like being yourself, waiting for it. You don't always have to be performing per se. So it's interesting to play with those different levels, and I feel lucky if I get to host this because that's stage time, that's experience, and it's a place to experiment for me as a performer. I know that I've got 2 slots a week to kind of do a bit. I can start with the Larry, and then maybe I can sing a song or something to start, or read a poem. Like last night I read my open mic poem to kick it off. That's my open mic anthem. I got my MFA from the streets of New York. And I didn't kill it or anything. I was kind of nervous, and I was kind of like, but there weren't that many people there. So I wasn't really that nervous. Like if the room would have been packed with like 70 people, I would have been like, holy shit, this is a lot to juggle. Like, I've got to host this, I've got to run the mics, I got to sign people up, blah, 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 blah. So it did feel a little bit like a dress rehearsal. Jonathan Prea followed Matthew Silver. It's always a fun slot to go after Matthew Silver, especially if you're. But he he did it absolutely the best, perfectly, because he just did what he does, and he actually really, by his second or third piece, that's how I feel. That's how I feel as a performer, and I feel like most performers doing these open mics, it's like it takes you 30 seconds or a minute before you sort of like dial in. And then you kind of like go, okay, now I'm actually like reading it. And Jonathan Aprea, his like second and third poems was just like he was so in it. And so for me, I like seeing that. To me, that's not a problem to see Matthew Silver and then to see Jonathan Aprea. With, like I was saying, with the Slooge open mics, that's totally what it was. You'd see Ken Mills, then you'd see Olivia, then you'd see Unicorn Harvest, then you'd see rappers, then you'd see Thompson, then you'd see, whatever. Caitlin would do a thing. Whatever people had to like bring as an offering, that's kind of the point. I want it to be less maybe like some kind of stage time showcase, although that too, I want it to be show business, but I also want it to be like a ritual and sort of like a magical circle. We're all, that's the beauty of the open mic to me, right? Is the cross transaction. Everybody gets to share, everybody gets to bring something, everybody gets equal stage time. And, I think people were a little bit like, is this whack? Is this not whack? Like, they weren't totally sold until, like I said, probably 30 or 40 minutes in. Then things started to get rolling. Frank was cool. Frank is Billy Predlow's friend. They came out, brought a friend. They were both great. Read awesome pieces. I hope they had a good time. I hope everybody who came, like, thought it was, like, worth it. I definitely think, hopefully it's, like, special and, like, some magic rubs off on people that they take with them. Because the other open mics, to be honest, they're always, like, great experiences. Like, the Shades of Green open mic is always great. The Dead Pete Society is always great. There is a sense with poets who really bring, like, sincerity and energy and their sort of A game. Afterward, there is a sense that, like, wow, like, this was special. Or even music open mics or comedy open mics can feel like that too, where it's like, hey, we did this. Even if it's 6 guys in the back room at the comedy shop, or, open mic at Castelli Cafe, songwriters thing. It's like, hey, we were all here. This was a one-of-a-kind performance. Us 12 or however many people, 15 people, did our stuff. We all did our original music. We shared our poetry. We shared our feelings. We shared our art, what we've been working on. We're all trying to do this. We got social media. We got SoundClouds. We're recording shit. We're playing shows. I love playing shows, man. I absolutely live for it. It makes everything worthwhile. Even if there's 20 people there. Especially if there's 20 people there. And if they're all magical people, and they all have super depth and super integrity, like, it's very special to do a live show. It's always special. Even if, you don't necessarily connect or hit it out of the park or anything. It's always special to be in person and to bring it and to bring the word and to share your sort of 2 cents, or you share a piece of your soul, really, with people. That's what I try to do. It is like a religious, I'm trying to bring my best thinking, my best ideas, my best artistic language. If I can make something artistic a one-of-a-kind little moment, by improvising with the piano, like at the beginning I did a little piano, and then at the end, the grand finale was, so I kept asking people, does anybody else want to go? And Matthew Silver was like, can I go again? Of course. And I was like, sure. I felt bad because I gave every comedian 6 minutes, but it's like, the show was also going really fast, and like, there was no reason to rush anybody. If people wanted to take their time, like, the thing was going to be over by like 9:30. I was a little worried. I was like, I was hoping it would last, till 11 or 12. But I'm also happy because the bartender, right, for them, And the bartender was super great. This girl Amanda was super cool. It couldn't have been any better. She was amazing, and 5 stars. And I hope it was worth her time. I think she got there. I got there at 7. She was there, kind of setting up when I got there, so I think she probably got there maybe a little before, around 7. And she was out of there, I think, by 10 probably. We were done by 10. So, like, it's a little shift for her. If she could make $100, hopefully, I hope she made somewhere between 50 and $100 at least. Which for like 3-4 hours of work, that's not bad. And you're seeing an interesting show. I don't know. She seemed to vibe with it, which I was surprised by. I really wasn't sure how it was going to be received or even which way it was going to go. I mean, the one thing that surprised me and I feel bad about was there were not that many women there. And that was kind of a surprise to me. Not that I knew anybody was going to show up or who specifically was going to show up or anything like that, but that's like something that I'm disappointed in myself, and I should work harder, like to make it a point, to make it like appealing. I mean, like I said, it wasn't really publicized that much. I basically shared it on my social media accounts, and that was about it. KGB didn't really share, and I got behind the ball, so that's my fault. But also, like, I'm kind of just trying to ease into this. And now that we've done one and it went great, I feel really confident about it, and now I'm ready to like put it on blast. And I spread the word at all the open mics I went to, and I do think that made a big difference. A lot of the people who came were either people I met at like Dead Pete Society or Poetry Project, or just word of mouth. Poets telling poets, writers telling writers. I mean, Matthew Silver I met at the Bar Freda dime store thing, and so going to all these comedy open mics, getting to know that culture has sort of paid off a little bit. And that if those dudes hadn't showed up, there would have been 6 poets there. Like, I was lucky that they showed up, and I hope they come back next week. Like, I hope that they found it worth their while. At least it was an entertaining night. I mean, the 2-drink minimum, it is what it is. I would say, whatever you do, just don't, like, bring your own. Like, that is something that they've complained about at both of the events. The event I did July, and I don't think that's unique to the events that I do. I think that's just a KGB thing. Like, there's a few things that they really hammer on as, like, minimum, and, like, you can't bring your own drinks. You can't bring, like, a flask. Somebody last night, I guess, was drinking from a flask. And it's like, you can't do that. And anyway, if you are going to do it, go to the fucking bathroom or something and do it. Like, don't do it in the goddamn bar. Like, what are you, an idiot? Like, I want it to be just a hangout, chill space for people on a Monday night. Poets, it's our night if you're in Manhattan. But I also want it to be like an international tourist thing. Like, if you're from out of town, if you're in Manhattan, you're looking for a place to read, I want this to be the Chat Noir. I want this to be Culture Rapide. I want this to be, Beyond Baroque. I want it to be Beatnik Cafe. I want it to be Scott Wood's open mic. Like, this is the spot. Monday night. Like, this is it. Like, it's amazing. I'm patterning it off of the Sidewalk Cafe in the Under St. Mark's open mic. The Sidewalk Cafe is the real template, where it's like they had anti-folk musicians, they had kind of interesting writers, performance artists, weird kind of, and the room would be packed full of people, and it was a great show. and they'd go all night, So I'm trying to build that. It was a good first show. I got it on tape. Uh, like I said, the room is empty. If the bartender's game to do it, I hope that they can just let us roll with it. It's something that we could live stream it. Another big influence on it would be the UCB shows. UCB used to do all these great shows every fucking night of the week. They had shows all night. They'd have jams, and just they'd give comedians an hour to do an improv set, and so it gave the comedians, like, every week they had a place to try stuff and to bring content. So now it's like, when I have an idea, rather than saving it for this, now it's like, oh, I'll do it Monday. Like this Larry Sanders intro I've wanted to do at every show. It's sort of my signature. And so I was like, okay, that's what I'll start with. That'll be my first thing, and then I'll read my poem and sort of like do some loud, verbal enunciations or something. And that'll be my bit. That'll be my 5 minutes to sort of warm it up and kick things off. Like with the warm up thing, it's like an opening monologue. I'm not necessarily trying to like crush it. I don't want to upstage any of the performers, right? I just want to kind of get the ball moving and then get the people up. And then at the end, I can come in and just blast out and do whatever I want, because then everybody's gone and I can kind of climax it and go absolutely buck wild. It's interesting to perform with Matthew Silver because we do have a lot in common, but he connects with the audience in such a direct way. They really respond well to him. I've never really been able, I don't know, I probably could do that if I see how he does it. I don't know if I could really fully believe in it. Like, I think he's able to like really believe in it, and he's somebody that may have been blown open by psychedelics or something. I'm not really sure. He reminds me a little bit of this guy on All Gas No Brakes, who was sort of blown open by psychedelics, I think, to some degree. And I think that there's something important about people who do that and who are shaman or something, if you want to think about it in that way. Matthew Silver, like I've said before, it's just like his messages are so direct. And I think it's important that he does distill it to that. And he's like a guru in a lot of ways. A lot of what he does is like spiritual advice. It would be under that umbrella where he's like, we're infinite. We're infinite. God is inside of us. We are infinite. And none of this exists and blah, blah, blah. That's like hammering these kind of very, I don't know, they're important, I guess. Or like that's how the audience receives them. It is important. It's like a meditation app that just hammers that home. But he's a thoughtful person and a pretty articulate guy. So, if he wanted to bring that dimension into what he does, it seems to me, he said something about how he's trying to like enact neuroses. And I think that is like the clown. He's a clown in a way. And that is like the clown act he's doing, where he's like, I'm scared. I'm not nervous. I don't know. It's like he's enacting the emotion he's feeling inside, the nerves or whatever. And by acknowledging that, I think it's funny to people. But I'm not trying to do that totally. I understand that he's almost like an energy personified or something, and then he sort of hammers it in with these like, he's like, nobody criticizes him or something. He doesn't get any feedback, so he can't grow. And I don't know. I'm not sure what he's trying to do. He occupies this place in a certain way in the culture. He's got 100,000 Instagram followers. Some people know who he is. And it's like that's kind of who he is. He's just like this presence, right? And so to me it's almost like having Moondog or something at the open mic. And I mean the avant-garde musician. Not that that's what Matthew Silver does, but he's almost like one of those figures. He's got the beard and he's kind of a street performer, and he's he is wild, and his social patterning is like very different than everybody else's, and so it draws interesting responses out of people, and it catalyzes something in the reading, for better or for worse. I don't know. I don't the poets might feel very thrown by that. I think the comedians are used to it by now. He's a comedian, and but he was saying basically what I was saying is stand-up comedy is where all the stage time is. That's, I think, a reason why he does it, which I think is that's just how it is. Like that's just operating. And so to some degree I think he is a live performer, and he's sort of a New York City character, like Moondog. And so I don't know, like I feel like a weird kind of parallel to him in some way, even though, that was never an intention, or like I certainly don't try to imitate what he does in any way. It's just like our names sound similar. Proctor and Silver's at the same, well, it's not quite the same amount of letters. But it's an R ending, starts with a consonant, 2 syllables. Got that consonant, 2 consonant in the center. CTLV. So anyway, there's similarities. And, I was surprised that he came, because we've done this dime store thing, and, I don't know. It's hard to tell what the fuck is going on in his head, so I don't, I met him. I think it just kind of came and went. He didn't even remember meeting me. And then, so at the end of this thing, I'm like, does anybody want to go? And he's like, I'll go again. So he goes up, and he just he kind of like has to warm into his thing, and I'm like, part of me's like, oh God, I can't let him go absolutely nuts, because he's going to upstage what I had sort of in my back pocket. I was like, I knew from doing System Lord stuff that I had my PA, so I'm like, I need like a song to end on. And that's how I knew that would be my ending. I'll play a song on the PA, I'll do some piano, and I'll like make up some lyrics about thanks everybody for coming out and blah, blah, blah. And we'll just get people applauding, and that'll be the end. Just a big finale. But then Matthew Silver goes up again, so I'm like, oh fuck, he's gonna steal my act. So, because I had this whole thing planned out where I was going to play Brownsville Girl, the Bob Dylan song. I just thought it would be a great song to go out on, because it's just this huge, like, and he's, like, talking a bunch. So I was like, I can talk over this, and, like, Bob's talking is going to fuel my talking, and that'll be an interesting kind of juxtaposition. I can play piano over it. I got my harmonica, and I can do feedback with the thing, maybe. I knew I got an ending. But then I'm like, oh, fuck, Matthew Silver's going to go up, and he's going to be the ending. So he's doing his thing, and after, like, a few minutes, he starts saying this thing about, we're going to dig in the stage. Everybody come up. We're going to dig on the stage. And nobody like, goes up on stage. He's like, everybody come up on stage. So I'm like, okay, let me go. He said come up on stage. So that's my cue. I cue Brownsville Girl, full blast, and I go up and I go, oh, thank you, everybody, Matthew Silver, Easy Paradise, open mic, blah, 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 and that's the finale, and so we're both up on stage. I start playing the piano, he starts doing his fucking thing, we start dancing around together, I start singing. They have this great microphone at KGB Bar, Red Room, for all the Jazz Gatsby singers. That's like, it's one of those old-fashioned fucking, like, radio mics from, like, the 50s. It's like the kind of mic Elvis used when he first started, or, like, I don't know, fucking, it's not necessarily a Bing Crosby mic, but it's a really great mic. It's like this old silver with, like, the fucking lines cut in it, for the condenser. And, it's my Bob mic. I got up there, I'm like, this is the triplicate. I've been listening to Triplicate I've been red pilled into liking Triplicate and Braggin. I've been listening to Braggin nonstop since I've been trying to get in touch with culture my own age. So I've been listening to Jokerman podcast, and the guy followed me back on Instagram on Easy Paradise. He's a good poet. I liked his poem. He had a poem in some magazine in LA that was actually really good. And then I've also been watching this Channel 5. I want to talk about that. And All Gas, No Brakes, because that's been kind of interesting. Because I'm trying to get in touch with what's actually out there today and what's popular with the kids on YouTube. And just language. It's interesting places where language pops up. That Channel 5, everybody freestyles. So it's kind of a poetry show in a way. Because he gets everybody, Chet Hanks, freestyle. It's amazing. I had no idea there were all these people out there fucking freestyling. That's Channel 5 Wavelength. It's lit as hell. That show is lit as hell. So anyway, Matthew Silver and I riff out for 5 or 10 minutes, and I've got the Bob microphone, bragging. I've got the Triplicate microphone from 1955 or whatever. It's like a Frank Sinatra microphone. You know, it looks like a fucking head or something. Like Colossus's head from X-Men. It's like this silver, like, face. Like a sphinx face. It's really beautiful. It's like the most beautiful of all microphones, I would say. So this, I don't know. I've been lucky, but this whole thing has felt very right. And like things are kind of falling into place. I hope they kind of help. They bear with us and they let us kind of, you know. I feel like I'm like Conan. When he started on the fucking late night, he had never even been on fucking TV. It's kind of hard to believe. They gave him a fucking TV show. He had never even really been a performer hardly that much. And, you know, he was constantly under scrutiny and threat of getting canceled. I feel like I finally got, this is my Tonight Show. This is my chance to be Larry. This is my chance to be Johnny Carson. I've always wanted to be Johnny Carson. One of my first dreams, 1996 and 7, when I was 11, 12 years old, I wanted to be Johnny Carson and host the Tonight Show. And then Jimmy Fallon usurped me. So this is my Tonight Show with Matthew Silver. It's a dude fest. We need to be more female friendly. I don't know. I don't know how. I'll tell you what, James did great. James went out and read a great piece. I think it was very influenced by, let me say it was very influenced by my chapbooks. But it was very good. It was excellent. Better than I can do, to be honest. And talking about how he made out with some chick at fucking Governor's Island, New York Poetry Festival. I've never made out with anybody at New York Poetry Festival. I'm going for 10 years. No, I've never even come close. Well, I think I've talked to a few girls. Well, okay, maybe that's not strictly true. That's not entirely true. I won't go into it, but... So anyway, he did great. But then Matt from Poetry Project went up last. And they weren't on the list. I kind of coaxed them up. They weren't going to come out and sit in the front and not read something. They're great poets. And Matt really surprised me. He brought the fire. He really gave a passionate performance. And his poem was very, very good. I was very impressed. I appreciate that he came out. He lives not that far. He lives, you know, in the East Village, so. But you know, by doing more energetic performances and by going to these kind of extremes and being loud and smoking weed and trying to get emotional and touch the magic, you know, I want it to be a magic sacred circle and a sacred ritual, and for everybody to be fucking stars and to be legends and to be gods and to be poets and to be artists and to be taken seriously and to be geniuses and to play at the top of their intelligence. That's what we're here for. We're here to be smart and great and graceful and beautiful and terrific. and all the John Cassavetes adjectives. And it was a good ritual. It did feel like a caveman. Felt like we were in a cave around a fire, being entertaining as hell. That's what I want to be. I want to be entertaining. I don't want to fit in any fucking mold. And as I was planning for this the whole week, I'm like, what am I gonna do? Do I gotta do this, do that? I'm like, it's my show. I can do whatever the fuck I want. Literally, any idea I have, I can actually do it. And doing all these other open mics and shit, you're always like trying to fit into what you think they want, or what's going to be appropriate, or it's like a music open mic, or it's Elizabeth Street Garden, which is a certain vibe. I want to talk about that too. I did the reading there on Sunday. Um, Whereas with this, it's like I set the vibe. And so at least initially, I'm trying to sort of like, I don't want to like startle the venue and get them to be like, whoa. Because, if I really go nuts, it can cause a little bit of bad, like people in the venue start going, whoa, this guy, he broke something, or. And so I didn't want that kind of, the bartender to, I want her report back to the management to be positive. Even though we didn't necessarily hit our target financially, and we probably, to be honest, we probably didn't even do that well. Um, but I don't know. I think they made some money, hopefully more than a few $100s, and we'll do better next week. Now that I've done it, I'm gonna promote the hell out of it. I'm gonna put more flyers up. I'm gonna get out there. I mean, doing System Lord Friday. I'll be at Poetry Project Wednesday. I put a flyer up there. I didn't put up flyers till like last Thursday or something. Like, there hasn't really been time for the word to get out. This girl showed up at like 10 o'clock as we were leaving, and she's like, "I'm here for the open mic." She was a songwriter and a singer, so hopefully she comes back next week. I posted a bunch of shit on it to social media today because I want people to see it and be like, "Oh, this was cool. I'll go next week." I think people are a little bit like hesitant. They're, do I want to go out again? But as we get back into the season of doing things, I think I want it to be an artistic home for artists downtown to know, come in Monday night, KGB, I'll put you on. You'll be in front of a cool audience, a smart audience. It's a great room. And the other thing is the downstairs open, or Monday poetry. So the ideal would be people go if they want to see the downstairs. And another thing was last night was Kathy Fagan and David Baker, who are both poets from Ohio. Kathy Fagan, I think, is the head of the MFA program at Ohio State, and David Baker, I'm pretty sure, teaches at Kenyon, two places that I have relationships with. So that was another auspicious sign. They were downstairs while we were upstairs. So Ohio, we had mad Ohio representation at KGB last night. We dominated KGB. It's just a magical place. The Crane Theater. It's a very buzzy place. There's a great reading there tonight with Rochelle Ramey. I'd like to go to that. I'm probably going to go to Tuesdays at 9, which is a theater thing. So now I'm going to try to get in theater world. I'd like to have actors come do monologues and shit if they want. Like that guy doing Shakespeare, come do your monologue. Why the fuck not, Get that in the air. Or write a monologue and do it, I don't want people to feel hemmed in like they have to do this or that. They can come and just try whatever they want. You have 5 minutes, do whatever you want, It's show and tell. It's like it's a talent show. Whatever your talent is, just do it. Or whatever you want to do. It's a vaudeville, it's a variety show. Play a song, play the piano, play free jazz. I was playing the harmonic at the end to Brownsville Girl, and it was surprisingly in key. As I'm playing, I'm like, fuck, this sounds good. How did this happen? Brownville girl. You know, it's the ultimate chorus. And it's Sam Shepard and Bob Dylan wrote a song together. And there's me and Matthew Silver. Matt Proctor and Matt Silver. Tweedledee Dum and Tweedledee Dee. That's the song we should have been performing to. So, you know, it was kind of a sleepy vibe. That's a Monday thing. And for me, it was like, even I was going into it sort of like, okay, I'm just kind of like, you know, I'm feeling my way into this. I'm not necessarily starting out at 100 miles per hour because, like I said, I don't want to offend the venue or break anything, or, you know, we want to kind of build. And I was pretty happy with the turnout. I mean, considering we didn't get a whole lot of promotion other than my social media channels, which are really not, you know, I think maybe a couple hundred people total saw the flyers through my Instagram moments, Facebook, posting it to different, you know, the comedy forum on Facebook, the poetry groups on Facebook. Um, but the people who actually showed up, Billy Pedlow's people, the comedians, and people I knew, that was basically the conglomeration. I think maybe a few people saw the flyers and just came to watch. I didn't necessarily get around to talking to everybody, but and then Prince McNally brought a friend who I think was also. I think there were a few people there that wanted to perform, but they were kind of shy. And I think you have that at any open mic, and so I'm trying to be encouraging, and I'm not trying to scare people by being loud or screaming or anything. It's more like I'm just trying to make everybody feel comfortable with who they are. By me being sort of outlandish, first of all, it's just a way to get the energy up and to get things happening. And that's different than a lot of poetry readings. Most poetry readings you go to are low key, and they kind of, that's what people like about them. They're, and especially like recently, they're very sincere politically, and there's a lot of important things that are being said. And I want to bring that. I want there to be gravity. There was beauty to me in seeing Prince McNally read his piece and then see a comedian go up afterwards, or to see Matthew Silver and Jonathan. It was, first of all, for me, it was just surreal kind of seeing all these people in the same room, because partially for me, it was just like, this was my project, in that I've been going all over the city. I've been going to Long Island City. I've been going to Jersey at points, or meeting people from Jersey, going to Dead Pete's, going to Elizabeth Street Garden every 2 weeks, going to all this comedy shit, going to Hillis's show, doing System Lords, meeting people at music open mics, meeting Jersey Trash or T, or meeting Dark Doves, meeting, you know, going to Music In open mic, meeting Carlos from Dead Pete Society, meeting Carlo from Music In, meeting Helena, I think is her name, meeting the dudes hanging out on McDougal Street. And so getting it, for me, it was like to see all these, or, you know, even some of them. It wasn't like everybody came, but like to see who I met at McNally Jackson, Elizabeth Street Garden reading, and Jonathan Aprea and James, who are Serious Poetry Project guys, and you know, Matthew Silver from the Dime Store show, and who's like, you know, if he promotes something, he's got 100,000 followers. It's like some people might come out, more people will see it anyway. And there are other open mics like this Word open mic. It's like they get people to pay $10 cover to come do it on Monday night. So it can be done, you know, and it will be done. Thy will be done. And it was just beautiful seeing all those people in a room, seeing Frank come out from, I met them at Dead Pete's, and seeing all of that different places and good poets, you know, anarchist poets, I don't know her name, but who does Bumming with Sunny. She was at the Elizabeth Street Garden. She couldn't make it last night, but I think she's going to try to come next week. I know that Matt, the existential Minch guy, was gonna try to come. He couldn't make it out. It's no problem, but hopefully he'll come in the future. So it's like, hopefully people will see the pictures and all of that and be like, all right, I'm there next week. I want to get some musicians coming out. I really want T to come out. I really want the Dark Doves. You know, I'd love to have Nevin and Andrea involved, and if Luke, you know, and whoever, uh, you know, for me partially, it is a little bit about establishing my own thing. Like, the last reading series I had was with Sarah, and you know, that was performing with the saxophone, and you know, there were definitely certain. We had features every time. We had at least 2 or 3 features plus an open mic. With this, I think what I might do is I might do one feature a week, and I might just have them feature as I go, rather than like plan it out in advance. Like, I'll plan it when I can, but like, you know, I could get Prince McAnally would be a great feature. Uh, James would be a great feature. Jonathan Aprea would be a great feature. Matthew Silver would be a great feature. Any number of those people from last night. Billy Pedlo, Carlos. You know, like I could get Greg. You know, I could get fucking. Hopefully, you know, I could get. The sky's the limit. You know, hopefully I could get Poetry Project people to come out and be features. But doing one a week, maybe giving one person 15 to 20 minutes. I'm not opposed to that. It might be a way to sort of like beef it up and anchor it and give it like a little bit more of like, oh, I got to go this week to see this person. You know, it's a headache booking a lot of people, and maybe I won't do it every week, but I don't think it would necessarily hurt to have one feature a week. Uh, to just kind of put a face on it and give an added attraction. That's something I could. That's something I could promote weekly. Here, this person this week. Next week, this person. You know. Uh, I want. You know, at this point, it is sort of touch and go, and so it is just getting started, and so like. I hope it gets on its feet. I hope the management there has been super nice and super. Oh, it's probably the exterminator guy. The management has been super supportive. Um, and so hopefully we can sort of do these things as time goes on. You know, it wasn't necessarily, that's just not the way I work. I'm not necessarily somebody that comes uh, by doing stuff way in advance. I mean, I definitely have ideas about how I want to do it, but it it wasn't like I was gonna land the first night, boom, and here it is. Like, I've never been given the opportunity to do this before. So seeing those shows like at UCB East, there was like the Tony show. There was this other show. I don't know what it was, but it was just these two guys, and when they would host it, they would do kind of characters and stuff. You know, they'd start out and they'd do 5 or 10 minutes where they'd be like, it was like a different character every week, and they'd host it in character. So it was like they were improvising in the character, and it was just, you know, it's this cool theater, and like there'd be 15, 20, 25 people there maybe. I don't know where people are doing that now. That UCB East was such a great forum for that kind of stuff. Now all these places are like this, where they want everybody paying $25, you know, to get in there. So UCB, it was like you go see these shows for $5 or for free even. So as far as live entertainment, just seeing, you know, people just out of college or in their 20s or whatever, uh, hold on, I'll be right back. you know, they'd have opportunities to host shows and shit. Here, I'm gonna change the angle up maybe a little bit. Um, can I do it laying down? Live streaming from laying down. Nobody's gonna watch this. I look like shit. Um, so I wanted to have, you know, for me, using the stage space in that way, I'm taking those people kind of as examples. With Poetry World, at most, the hosts, I would say the two best, like smoothest, like entertaining hosts that I've seen are like Jason Koo and Simona Blatt, where they're like they get up between everybody and they have kind of a funny, like quip about whatever it was, something in the poem or something that's happening, and making announcements and being MCs. They're like they're like MCs. Simona's Blatt is super funny and smart and like I don't I don't know that I don't it like when you see that you're kind of like intimidated. You're like Jesus Christ, like how do they think of that stuff or how are they that comfortable and how am I going to, you know, when I get up there do I have to think of it before I go up and if I do, how do I say it so it sounds like natural and funny? Um or do I just think of it while I'm up there? You know, you're trying it out. You know, I'm trying it out as I go to like I've never done this. Well, I have. I've done this a lot, but this is the first time I've really felt like I've had freedom to like just do literally the show how I want to do it. But also I can take a little part of it for myself to sort of try stuff. Like the Tonight Show, right? He's got guests and stuff. They have some comedian come out and do a oh man 5 minutes or whatever, but let's try it in here. Um, you know, I should have been doing that with the Slooge stuff, but I was so tied up with music and all that kind of stuff as I got kind of. It was more of a fear thing, you know? Now it's like I know I've got blocks of time at the beginning and the end of the show where I can talk and I can experiment with talking on stage and trying what I want to try. And so when I get up and talk, I'm trying to be funny and all of that, but I am also conscientiously trying to be like maybe a little pretentious or like I want to intellectualize the environment. I want in addition to the poems being very highly articulate and hopefully the comedy or whatever, the music, I want the MCing to be like an art piece, like a David Anton thing or an oral composition. But I want to use my ideas about how there should be a new form of public speaking and talking. And so this is a talk show in the sense that we're just talking. And, you know, I think there is an obligation to be funny or entertaining. I mean, I feel that even in my life. I'm trying to be entertaining and as interesting as possible and poetic, if you will, maybe. And so I want to bring that at, you know, you don't feel that really with New York. It's just, but also make it accessible. So if you're some rich person with a bunch of money to blow and you want to come in and have a good time, to be honest, you're probably going to have a better time at our show than you would going to Dizzy's Club Coca-Cola or to one of these fake jazz bars downtown where you're going to blow, you know, 150 bucks on tickets and drinks and this and that, couple $100, and see some mediocre Ryan Gosling La La Land jazz. Like this, you're going to see real New York artists. That's been my mission going, and I don't know, I'd like to get people who aren't just like open mic people too. I'd like to make it such a hot show that like it's not just for the people that like can't get real gigs or are practicing really. I just want it to be a great show, and so hopefully people who are great artists, I mean they already do, but like will come and just want to do it, you know, like, and not think about it like, oh, it's a fucking open mic. It's like, well, no, Don Yorty could come, or who, not to use him as an example, or you know, System Lord could come and play. But I also, it's just easier logistically. I don't know if they're going to want to come to Manhattan. It's at the top of these stairs, which is a whole thing, moving all the equipment every week. I mean, I've been talking about getting a weekly show forever. So, you know, I've been trying to do it with music, but this is really, I feel like, a breakthrough. And so I'm really happy about how it went. The video, I think, is going to be good. I'll post it soon. I also want to talk about the Elizabeth Street Garden reading. Let me open this window real fast just to get some air in here, which was also really nice. The theme was legacy. It was the last one of the year. The weather was nice, and it's just such a beautiful audience. I mean, Jesus Christ! Like, looking back, I'm like, how lucky. I wish I would have maybe taken more advantage of it. Now I'm only getting to the point where now I feel like I'm taking the reins with the audience. Before, I've always felt like just trying to sort of get through it or something. Now I feel like I'm more in command, and I'm more kind of doing things at my own pace, and there's more kind of body with what I'm doing. And so, you know, this Elizabeth Street Garden reading is such a gift. It's a beautiful location. It's Manhattan. It's sponsored by McNally Jackson. So it draws really good. I mean, I don't know. I think it was maybe just a pandemic thing. People don't necessarily have the time, space, money in their lives in the same way as they did last year. Like, last year was kind of a special time where it's like people were still kind of getting unemployment, and things were still kind of suspended and outdoors, and there was more of a relaxation to our society. People had more free time. They were traveling because they had all this money from the pandemic. Whereas this summer, I don't know, the Elizabeth Street Garden readings weren't quite as international, it felt like. I didn't necessarily make as many. I made new friends, but they were all kind of like locals in a way. Um, Last year, it felt like there was maybe more of a mixing up happening. You'd go out with a group of people afterwards or something. This year, it was like I'd always make one friend and like spend hours talking to them right after the reading, like that uh, Ellen Alexander or Kate McKnight, or at this one, I hit it off with this guy Prince McNally, who was super cool and a really good poet, really important. And so anyway, you know, there was a lot of people. There was 40 or 50 people. So being in front of that audience, and it's like, it's a beautiful, you know, it's this beautiful stone and marble and these nice statuettes, and you couldn't get, honestly, a more idyllic reading location. Even though it is just sort of like this open mic almost. It's good people, and I like that there's a lot of younger people that read at it too, you know. It's older people, but you get, there was this one girl who was still in college at this, who was like very confident. She was pretty good. Um, but so because it was legacy and because it was the last reading of the season, you know, with these Elizabeth Street Garden readings, I've had varying degrees of impact. There are certain readings where I really like made a big impact and got good feedback, and then there were other readings where I feel like I just kind of came and went and was not really even noticed. And so, like the last one I did, the theme was Muse, and I read my piece from the sex book. And I had to go up early, and like, it was kind of just abbreviated. It was just an abbreviated experience. So, even though it was nice, um, I didn't really maximize the potential of what it could have been, you know? And so, this one, I was like, it's the last one of the season. There's a lady who runs it, and like, she's kind of back and forth, I feel like, about her enthusiasm for what I do. Even though I go to this series, like, probably more than anybody. It's probably annoying because I'm on it like every time, practically. This year, I don't even know. There were two a month since June, so what is that? Like 10 of them. I probably did 8 or 10 of them. I did like five, I think, at least 5 or 6. Um, I think I did five of 8, maybe. I missed the ones in June, and then I missed one. But anyway, this one I was just like, fuck it, it's the last one. And my I was gonna read a short piece from Bloomsday just because I was like, well, let me read something current, whatever. But then I was like looking at my City Life book, and I was reading my book, my poem Cafe Life, which is a long. It's an interesting piece from City Life, and I wasn't sure how it held up because I read it at the KGB reading I did last summer. Um, in June. It was kind of the centerpiece of that reading. And what it was, it's a whole collage poem, and it's kind of a big, it's like that big Blue Jay composition or something almost, where it's just like this long, it's all over the page. It kind of uses, but it really was influenced, and it's sort of a historical tracing and retelling of my time and the history of the area of Greenwich Village, because I was really discovering that. I was walking through the West Village constantly. I wrote it, I think, in April 2021, and so I was just, living up here. That was really what I did that whole spring. I just walked. I'd sit at the patio at St. Ambrose because they were like renovating or something, so they were closed, but their patio was out, so I could sit there and nobody would bother you. And so I was sitting. They had this great cafe table on 7th Avenue South and Charles Street, which they have since removed. So I'd sit there. I'd sit all over the West Village, just at patio tables, writing in my notebook, smoking, and just looking. And, and then I'd come home and I'd read about, I've got this book, Republic of Dreams, and I'm reading the Maxwell Bodenheim stuff, and I'm reading E. E. Cummings, and I had prior knowledge about Harold Norris, and all this stuff. I was really just trying to research the history, the psychogeography of the West Village, and all the artists and that bohemia. Like I was prior to that, I was more a student of the kind of East Village, New York school thing and the Poetry Project, and being on this side of the island, for being in that neighborhood. That's just what I was drawn to, and I just fell in love, and the dimensions of the neighborhood, and the just the vibe, the aesthetic, the look, the size of the West Village, I really think influences the art in a lot of ways. E. E. Cummings stuff, I think, is the way it is. It's very West Village in a way, even the way it looks on the page, and I think even Bob's stuff is very West Village. Obviously the early stuff, but his poetry and things. And so I've been kind of trying to trace those lineages. Um, and that poem got a huge chunks that are about that. I was still learning, so there's things that later I would learn more about. The jazz poets, the beat poets, right? Taylor Mead, John Brent, Howard Hart, Hugh Romney, they're all mentioned in it. The Gaslight Poets, the Beat. So I'm trying to like fashion a certain aesthetic from referencing these things that I take as influences or want to kind of collage into a world, almost a world of characters, a world of outlooks, a world of images, a world of ideas and history and stories. But also, this piece blends my thoughts about gentrification and what's going on with the city now and the super talls, and you know, reading it against the backdrop of the theme really strengthens the poem, actually, because in certain poems I think the themes, it does that, it can be useful. Like, I was surprised because I thought that piece, it's long and it's one of the centerpieces of the book, like I was saying, but it looks like little cafe tables and little, it looks like Cafe Reggio, or some place that would be on West 4th Street or something, and a Greenwich Village of the heart and of the imagination and of the mind and of the AI. I can see it in my mind's eye, and I lived it. I'm living it. That's what this is all about. This is the fruition of all that. But this was the initial kind of research and like learning the psychogeography and the history of the ectoplasmic material and whatnot. And so, but it kind of, the poem goes through these stages in these kind of invisible, transparent ways, where I start out talking about gentrification in LA and Dubai and this and that, and it's more kind of like social criticism, but it's also melded with my own life. And then it goes into the whole historical thing and talking about the neighborhood and all the people. And it's almost like I'm trying to populate the cafes with these people by putting them in the poem. And so it shows you the mural of the Waverly Inn of all time, with all the great writers and thinkers and poets and orators and this and that, of this hallowed ground, which, to be honest, is very different now. Those people don't live there, really. There's nooks and crannies. There are people who are holdouts. That's all in the poem. And when I wrote it, I felt it was kind of cheesy. I felt like, okay, this is just like complaining about gentrification. But reading it against the background of Elizabeth Street Garden was, I felt, poignant because of what they're going through there, where the city's trying to evict them to build. The push now in Manhattan is, because so many want to live here, there's congestion, so they need to build up. So they need to rezone everything, and they need to bulldoze shit or build in empty lots big, tall buildings. Which, the West Village that's what's cute about it, and kind of magical about it, and kind of like medieval, or I don't know, it's like 18th century or something. It's like Washington Irving or some shit almost. It's like Revolutionary War period in a lot of ways. Like, you could see horse-drawn carriages and sleighs and shit going through the cobbled snow streets of the West Village. And yet, it's all these finance criminals and the worst people on earth. It's economics, it's marketing, it's just Big Ten assholes. And people who work for Goldman. And so it's not poets or artists or any of this. And so reading this poem in the context of Elizabeth Street Garden, which this might be the last fucking poetry reading they ever do there. That's why I went for broke. The piece, I don't know exactly how long it takes to read, but probably 6 or 7 or 8 minutes, somewhere in there. I think when I read it last year, it was like 8 or 9 minutes, but it didn't feel quite that long. I knew I was going to read something that was like long, but I just thought, fuck it, like it's the last one. It might be the last one ever. I got this big audience. I hadn't done a show since Monday. I took a little break because I've been going so hard basically since the end of July. I've been going pretty nonstop. And now that I'm back at work at the Poetry Project, that kind of broke my rhythm a little bit. Um, but I also just kind of needed a break, especially after, you know, the weekend prior, I did Long Island City reading. I worked at Poetry Project. I did New York Poetry Festival, which schlepping to Governor's Island, is no easy thing. And then I had a featured set that Monday. Meanwhile, I've got to promote this thing. I got to promote this other thing. So, uh, after that, I just took like a 3-day break. And I wrote some stuff. I needed to write some stuff. I worked on some videos. Anytime I'm taking a break, I'm not really taking a break. It's just like, I walk everywhere. I don't really pay to take the train. And so my body like hurts. My legs get tired walking. I'm constantly walking to these village. I walk to Shades of Green. I walk to Poetry Project. I walk to KGB. That's 40 minutes every time. So that's, 2 miles, a mile, something like that, a mile and a half. And so I read you're supposed to take 10,000 steps a day. That's 5 miles. That is a lot. And then I got to go up and down the stairs. So I'm constantly carrying groceries, schlepping water, carrying water. But this is a natural way to live. We've always carried water, right? I try to live as close to that as possible, as close to some kind of like natural rhythm, close to the earth. Doing these live performances, walking to these live performances is a big part of that. But I also want to extend my range. I mean, going to Long Island City, I like walking there. In Brooklyn, I like walking too, because you see the vantages from the bridges. I usually take the train one way, and then I'll walk back. But I like walking over the bridges. It's amazing. Seeing the whole fucking skyline, and I want to do it while I can. I love walking through Manhattan and seeing the density and the layers, and just there's so much detail, and it's worth exploring. There's still a lot here that's actually pretty interesting, even though there's a sort of flux of money which flushes out a lot of stuff. So I took a few days off to edit videos, to upload shit. I had to work last Friday. I did this amazing, oh my god, this movie was so beautiful, by Kate Giordano. Precious Memories. What was it called? I don't remember what it was called. It was really amazing. It was shot with like, I don't even know, probably VHS or Super 8 or High 8, VHS-C, something like that. Some kind of old tape cameras, but it was very well made. And they shot in Sunview Luncheonette like as this diner, but like the acting, the cutting, the sound, everything was like really, really well done. The framing, just a beautiful, beautiful movie. The music, even though it was shot with these kind of lo-fi look, it looked amazing. It was so beautiful. I really was inspired by it. It was sort of like what we were trying to do with Magic Baseball. It was like if you actually did a good job, it would be that movie. Like making a very serious, but almost like a performance art movie with like character and wigs and stuff. With like, childhood technologies, or pre-digital, let's say. Just because the aesthetic, the look of it, the sound of it, it was really an amazing. And then there was like this performance piece. It was phenomenal. I felt very lucky to be there and to be watching it and stuff. It was in the garden. It was really a nice night. A lot of people came. You never know who's going to come out, And so to even be in the room is lucky. I feel lucky. I get to go back tomorrow for Simone White's book launch. I'm just trying to enjoy this time as much as I can and not worry about it. I've been lucky enough to be given these opportunities. I want them to take me where they take me and let the chips fall where they may. I'm ready. I feel great. Taking it one day at a time here. And I'm just trying to perform and do this, put out the vibe as much as I can. just try to get something to catch, while I can, I'll worry about everything else when I have to. So I read the Cafe Life piece, and I think it went over well. I've by doing these shows a lot, like I said, so I took a few days off. So there was 6 days between shows. My last thing was the featured thing on Monday. I didn't perform again until Elizabeth Street Garden on Sunday. I probably should have tried to get out and do something in between. If you break your rhythm, it can be hard to, like I was just going so hard. But also, summer's breaking down, so things are changing a little bit. I don't know. I want to catch that kind of fire as a performer again. I want to, but I think this weekly thing is going to be a good stamina building. This is like an important rite of passage, I think, for New York performers to get like a weekly show. You're the host. You book people. You get stage time. You run the thing. You make, I've done a lot of events and stuff, but a weekly thing, getting that practice and that in is going to be really, and hopefully I can draw more of my friends who are artists. I'd like to get Nick Joswiak and Andrew and Holy Wisdom, and I'd love to get that scene to come out and do some stuff. Just to make it cool, just to make it a cool event. So yeah, I thought the piece went over well. I mean, one of the interesting things about having a theme, I wouldn't have a theme, but is people touch it from different angles, right? So legacy, a lot of people had a lot of different things to say. My thing kind of referred specifically to that area, to that neighborhood. Not Soho quite as much, but Greenwich Village, Soho's basically a part of that in some way, an extension of that, and the turnover that's happened there, it's all one thing. And so I thought it was important, even though it was a longer piece. And it went over well. By doing these performances, and also by studying, I've been listening to tons of Bob, obviously, because of this Joker Man podcast. They've kind of turned me on to new stuff that I'm trying to re-listen and see, that's what that show really... That's the joke part of it. It's like they find the stuff that's just like the absolute, like Triplicate. That's not anybody's favorite Bob Dylan album necessarily, but it is. And so they find stuff on it that you're like bragging. Bragging is, to be honest, I didn't hardly listen to Triplicate like at all. I liked the first one. I liked Shadows of the Night. Shadows in the Night. But I didn't really get into the other two. They seemed like he was just trying to put stuff on Spotify to me. It's like, fuck, I can put all these, then that's when he started to release all of this shit. He started to release like every take of like Blonde on Blonde, which is amazing and absolutely should happen. Thank you, Bob. But the idea that there's like an album set out there of like every take of Blonde on Blonde is like kind of crazy. It's amazing. Who knows how that is able to happen? But God bless it. The internet, I guess, and just collector nutcases. Bob is always finding innovative ways to distribute. Like this disc thing with Tito Bone Burnett, where he's like selling them for $100,000 or whatever. It makes sense. It's kind of a logical... And I think he's in on the YouTube thing. I think he likes the bootlegs and having all his concerts up there. I think it only adds to his body of work. His performances are art in and of themselves. That's one reason why I started filming all my shows, and the Grateful Dead works in the same way, where it's like every performance is kind of a unique document and artifact, and so why not try to make the most of that? So with my stuff, I'm trying to make it totally custom, totally improvised. With, the poems, the songs, the acts are what kind of bind it together. But the patter, what I do can be kind of like fluid and freestyled. I'm really a freestyler. I'm just like the guys on Channel 5 or All Gas No Brakes. I would freestyle if you asked me. I would definitely do it. I would do it in my own way, but I would totally freestyle. All you have to do is hit on a rhyme. You do it on your own time, anywhere in the line. But you got to make it fly and musical, with wordplay and not being shy. You can't back down. I've got like Allen Ginsberg rhymes. Yeah, so after the Elizabeth Street Garden reading, I really hit it off with Prince McNally, and so we went out for a few hours, and San Gennaro was going on, so there were all these people all up and down the streets in Little Italy, so I hung out there, walked around for a few hours. I just didn't want the night to end. After these performances, you're so jazzed. You just want to walk around and, where's the next thing, And especially while I live here, I mean, I don't have that much time left. It's September 20th. I've got 3 months, basically. So I want to create as many legends and as many stories as I can. And, I can walk to KGB and back. So everybody else is in this place, especially because it's Monday night. It's like you come out, you got to go home afterwards. You got to go to work in the morning, this, that. Monday night's an odd night to be living a rock and roll lifestyle, but I don't know. Hopefully at some point the society will return to some kind of vibe where like people can just hang out. That's what they got to do in the 80s and 70s in New York. They could just hang out and do their series, and not everybody had to go to work all the fucking time and this and that. Whereas that's New York now. Everybody, I gotta take the train to fucking. I think Matt Silver lives in fucking Jersey somewhere. And so, a lot of the people who come into Manhattan for open mics are from Jersey. So I want to get Brooklyn people coming in. I want to get Jersey people. I'd love to get people from uptown coming down. And I'd love to get just like the downtown people. The Poetry Project people, the Dime Square people. That's my goal, to just make it the center. KGB really is a great place to do that, especially now. And so I also wanted to talk a little bit about this All Gas No Brakes thing, Channel 5, and other things. I'm just way behind, and people really care more about cultural. If you make videos about that stuff, like these listening reaction videos, the stupidest shit is popular on YouTube. Anything that's not artistic at all, basically, is, it has to be more like utilitarian or just like weird. I don't know. Like fringe. I think this is something that All Gas No Brakes really exemplifies or illustrates for us, is like people in this country especially they all want to, maybe not everybody, but there's a lot of people who they're living in like this Grand Theft Auto mindset, or like they want to be like Johnny Fairplay. They want to be like the villain on the reality show. They want to be like outlandish characters. They want to say trolly shit. They want to have tattoos on their faces and just kind of, fuck you, don't do what you tell me, I'm going to do crazy, and all the characters that this guy interviews on this show, it's just like, it's amazing. I mean, that's not to be dismissive, because part of the point of Channel 5 is like, he just lets everybody say their piece. There's no judgment. He just holds the microphone up and people just go off. And like, he just shows what people think and what people, he goes to the fucking anti-vax rally, or he goes to the truck convoy. That was one of the most interesting episodes. The People's Convoy. And he follows the People's Convoy. And the way he moves around the country, I didn't really realize how much this was on purpose and built into the show, but part of what fascinated me or drew me to it was like, he's in the interior of the country and he's really showing what's, he's not showing New York. He's in LA a little bit, a good amount, but like, he'll go to Portland, he'll go to Oklahoma City, he'll go to fucking someplace in Arizona, he'll go to Salt Lake City, Utah, to the hip hop thing, he'll go to SneakerCon, he'll go to fashion stuff. And he's, you know, he's got Drip. A lot of his shows about Drip. The episode that drew me in was about O Block, which is this housing project in the south side of Chicago where like all of these people get killed in gun violence. And Chief Keef is from there, and like drill music is from there. So it's like this super violent, I guess. I've never listened to drill music, but that's how they characterize it in the episode. But it's interviews, and he goes there. He's there in his suit, and he's just holding up the microphone. And so you get to hear what they have to say. And to me, that's like super valuable. You know, for something that's like, you know, your average person, you look at something like that, like a housing project, O Block. It's one of the scariest places in the fucking country, maybe the world, because so many people get shot there. And so to actually show the people, to show, here's who they are, here's how they think, here's their thoughts, here's their 2 cents, here's their story. This is them telling you about their lives, how they knew friends that got killed when they're 12 years old and shit. And the language, man, talk about like the voice of the people, the way that people talk. They put so much stank on their language. And as a writer, I'm so fascinated by that. And that's really what I'm trying to capture in my poetry in a lot of ways. That's why I'm always using slang. I'm always trying to find like no cap or drip, or I'm always trying to put that stuff in, because that's the voice of the people in this country. And like it's got stank on it. It's dope, you know? It's like it works. That's why people. And so when you're in this culture, when you're in like skater culture or like shoe culture or like hip hop culture, it's like that shit either works or it doesn't. You know, it either like it pops off and gets millions of views, or like it's whack and nobody watches it. And like that's not exactly what I'm trying to do, but I do think that there's something to be said for the strength of that. And I think somebody like Bob Dylan is an artist who is able to sort of compete on that level. A lot of the strength of his music is just like he just has these lyrics that just sound like, what the fuck did he just say? That was fucking, I don't know why it's compelling. And it's not self-consciously poetic. Like Bob really doesn't write. He writes like people talk. I think he's trying to get out there listening to, you know, like he wants his finger on the pulse. That's why he had a song called It's All Good in 2009 or whenever that album came out. Because he was trying to sound contemporary, you know? Like Indiana Jones, like Anne Frank. Those British bad boys, the Rolling Stones. He's still doing it. I carry 4 pistols and 2 large knives. Like, what a fucking... And why is that memorable? I don't know. I guess because it's so specific and, like, Jesus Christ, first of all, where do you keep them? You just picture, like, a fur trap or something. 2 large knives. He's got them, like, in big fucking holsters or something. He's got pistol in his boot. He's got a thing. He's got a knife. He's got some in his belt. You know, like, what the fuck? I can picture Bob Dylan with 4 pistols and 2 large knives. But it's just such a hardcore fucking thing to say. And so, Channel 5 guy, he goes to the fucking NRA convention. He goes to the fucking... I don't know, it's... But at the same time, these people are getting attention for these very reasons. And so, like, I don't necessarily think giving them attention is important, is good. Like I'm saying, they want to be like the villain on the reality show who's like the you know, that's ratings. Like Trump, right, is the ultimate villain on the reality show. But it's like, those are the breakout characters usually, the Johnny Fairplays, the ones who kind of like are the Richard III's, who like double cross and play people against each other, and they kind of monologue and tell you, you know, here's why I did it, or here's what I'm gonna do, or this or that. Like when I see QAnon Shaman, right? One of the videos I watched, or I watched part of it. What's his name? Fuck, I can't think of his name. But the Channel 5 guy, I can't think of his actual name. All gas, no brakes. He has an interview with QAnon Shaman who's in prison. So it's over the phone. They just have a picture of QAnon Shaman on a monitor, and it's over the phone. And, you know, for the first 10 or 15 minutes, you're just like kind of hearing the guy out. That's what his show is about. You know, you're in the fucking Walmart parking lot of America. You're at the tailgate. You're at, you know, he goes to Talladega. That was one of the most disgusting episodes. All the buttholes and Jesus Christ. Like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? Drinking beer out of their shoes. Like, they're just, like, come on. That's disgusting. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, so once again, it's like, do we really want to give these people attention? I don't know. No. That's, to be honest, my show is, I'm not like working against like what that guy is doing per se, because like I like his show. I had basically the same idea, which was like, I just didn't do it because I'm not, I'm afraid of Americans and I want to live in New York. That's why I live in New York. That's the bubble, right? The bubble is sort of reaction against that. Everything that's on this guy's show, Sturgis, South Carolina, he goes to Uvalde. One of his best episodes is in Uvalde. He goes from this gun convention to Uvalde, and it's like pretty tough to watch. But it's real. You know, this is America, you know. In 2022, this is America, you know. And, you know, in Brooklyn and New York, you are kind of like shielded away from that to some degree. That's why you live here, to be away from the insanity and the meth people with tattoos on their faces and shit. This guy just goes straight into it, you know. And, well, like I was saying earlier, a big part of his show is the mobility of it, right? And they do it from this RV, right? This was my big idea. I mean, I never got the money to finance it, but if I wasn't going to move to New York in 2010, right before I moved here, the summer of 2010, I wouldn't have looked at all these RVs on Craigslist, which at the time were pretty cheap. You could find a lot of them for like around $1,000 or a few $1,000s for like a big ass 20, like a fucking Breaking Bad RV, right? Like a 20-foot long RV from like the 70s. Maybe not a Winnebago per se, but like something like that. A coastal crew. I don't even know what the names are. I've been kind of out of the RV game for a while. But it was always a dream. It was a dream my dad had. He wanted us to get an RV. And we wanted to live in the RV. Because it's a way of getting away from rent. And you're just traveling. You know, you're going around, you're seeing the country. And it's hard to do that now. But I never did it. Right? I moved to New York, where, you know, they have rent control here. So that's one way of sort of like getting around the rent problem, which is like everybody's problem now. The other way would be to get an RV. Or to just you know, how do you live a life on the road, right? In the 50s or 60s, how do you travel America? The story of America, or at least a lot of the novels, or, you know, part of the reason why I think the media is so coastal centric is because it's just not that easy to get around America, particularly in this day and age. There's no train system very much to speak of. What, are you going to take a Greyhound bus? I don't think so. Like, you have to have a car, or there's just not options. So actually going into America, getting around America, not that easy anymore. And so that's one reason why Americans are very isolationist and sort of xenophobic and all this, because they don't come in contact with other cultures. They're a part of this big homogenous corporate culture that they love. They love the loudness of it. They love arenas, and they love classic rock and wrestling and all of it. They love the intensity of this country and doing harder drugs and just getting more and more fucked up. And that, you know, half this show is just people screaming in the microphone. Yeah, just stupid shit. That's America. And so I would love to do, now that I've been doing this little bit in New York, now I'm like, I would love to do performances all over America. You know, like, I want a home base in New York, And with this KGB show, I'd like to bring the tourists in. Like that's the advantage of living in Manhattan is people come from all over the world to come here. So hopefully you can get that audience coming through your doors, where you have people from Sweden, Japan, Africa, all coming to your event, and then going and traveling, on and taking that with them. But the interior of America, right, could really use, like I understand those people. I'm from there, and like I'm adjusted to their standards to some degree. So I think I could connect with them. Maybe they're not going to think that I'm fucking, Lil Yachty or whoever. I don't even know. Some fucking super dope, current contemporary cultural figure. But, like, that's not to say that I couldn't bring what I do. It's like this Vachel Lindsay thing. Adventures while preaching the gospel of beauty. Vachel Lindsay walked across the country, basically, with poetry that he had written in pamphlets that he had printed out. And he would go from town to town doing readings, giving away his poetry in exchange for, like, a place to stay, food, preaching the gospel of beauty, I think that there's something to be said for that. That's what Bob does. I mean, the goal, I think, for a lot of performance artists is touring. And that's the level I'd like to get to, obviously. It would be nice if I could home base here and tour out of here and have my KGB thing. And, like, this is something a lot of comedians, right, have worked out for them. And this is why I want to get involved in comedy world, is because, like, comedians have this life where, like, they either live in New York or LA, and they fly every weekend to Dallas, to Florida, Tampa, whatever, the Funny Bone in Columbus, to the Iowa Comedy Festival. If you'll give them an airplane ticket and a place to stay, they'll probably come to your show. Like, if you can throw them a little money, like. And I think bringing the work to these places, I think, is important. If you can get through to people, that's where they need it, to be honest. And YouTube is a place to do that. Twitch is a place to do that. All the social media, I hate to say it. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, it's all ways to reach different people. Through Twitter, I reach poetry people, I reach literary people all over the world. Not that many, but the people who I reach are pretty substantial, and they're influential in a way. So if I can say something to them that they might think about. Instagram, I know all these comedians all of a sudden. I know music people. I know people from way back, from the Slooge, people from Columbus, family people. And so why not use that? And then Easy Paradise is a poetry world. I have tons of poetry world people who follow that all over the country. People in LA, people in here and there. So, I'm getting to the point, and this is something Matthew Silver and I were talking about, where it's like, you can't think about it as likes, really. I mean, views, you want to get views, I guess, but I think when you post something, especially to Facebook, I think, but even Instagram, I think there's a tendency to dismiss something that has, not that many views. It's only got 20 views. But, think about that. 20 people watched your thing. A live show, same thing. Only 20 people were there. But, 20 people saw what you did. And if what you're doing is interesting or full of whatever it is you have to offer and is, sincere and, you're bringing something, you influence them. You are an influencer. You had an effect. And to me, that's just as much the fabric of the world. The people that get all the attention are these kind of big cultural figures who send, who get a lot of likes, who get a lot of views, who, when their shit drops, they get 500 million views or whatever. But I think just on a community, it's almost like corporations and stuff. You know, like our culture does everything to empower big business and corporations at the expense of small business, which is really backwards. I think this is one reason why we have this homogenous interstate culture in this country, because they want shareholders to make money off of Walmart, Starbucks, McDonald's. You know, corporations are brands, they're stocks. A mom and pop is not a publicly traded company. It's every individual's opportunity to make something for themselves where they don't have to work for somebody else. And that increasingly is being taken away. And to be honest, an entertainment career or an art is the same fucking thing. And so we do have this struggling, kind of straggling local culture where people buy local and they buy bands merch and they pay for people's Patreon or whatever, Substack or whatever, or they buy your book. But it's not as empowered as it should be. The dominant culture is way more powerful. And I think the subsistence of art and the subsistence of artists on a peer-to-peer level, I don't think that should be dismissed. Just because there were only 20 people at the event, or just because only 20 people watched your video, or 12 people liked your Facebook post, or nobody liked your Instagram post, like they saw it. You know, if I can, you know, Facebook I was always a snob about, and I still don't like it, obviously. I don't like feeding that. But, like, you're able to reach an audience that I think it's important to reach. You know, I like, and I live in the room with the New Yorker or fancy avant-garde people. You know, like, that's probably my community, really, in a certain way. In the same way that, like, when I arrived at the church in 2011, New Year's Day, seeing Taylor Mead, seeing Jonas Mekas, seeing all of the artists of downtown, Philip Glass, Patti Smith, whatever, seeing people who are New York famous to people who were famous, people like Richard Hell, or, you know, Merce Cunningham, or, you know, New York, there's this whole, you know, somebody like Yoko Ono is like a god to somebody like Vincent Gallo or the Strokes. Whereas in Columbus, Ohio, Yoko Ono is the lady who broke up the Beatles, and we hate her, or whatever. That's just an example. I feel like, you know, John Lennon was more like Yoko Ono. Even though he was a working class hero and a common man as well, he hung out with Jonas Mekas and David Peel and shit, right? And so, but, where was I going with this? On Facebook, right, or Instagram, or these fucking open mics, you know, I don't live in the rarefied air of, I'm not accepted by the heavyweight poetry people. They don't book me on stuff. They don't do open mics. Open mics are for fucking losers. They look at open mics like they're weird or something. Or they just don't have time. You know, they're above that. It's for amateurs. To me, the open mic, as I've said before, is the voice of the people. It is the community theater. It's the real theater of this country. And that's the stuff that should be empowered. That's the stuff that I think we should value, rather than, oh, okay, this thing got, you know, this girl in a bikini got 100,000 likes, or this band got 3,000 followers, or whatever. It's like, who am I reaching? So with Facebook, right? It's a lot of people I went to high school with. It's people from Ohio. I mean, it's people from all over the world. My friends in South America, right? And so they don't like anything, or they don't like everything that I post. You know, one reason why I stayed off Instagram and Facebook for a long time, or didn't participate that much, and I still don't really participate very much, but I really wasn't on Instagram hardly at all. I post stories. That was about it. From like 2015 when I met Olivia, late 2015, to recently. I really don't use Instagram because I didn't like posting stuff and not getting likes. Now I look at it more like, people have there's a lot of reasons why somebody might not like something. They may not have even goddamn seen it. They may have been busy. They may have been off their phone. There's tons of reasons why they maybe didn't like something. But if you put it out there, you have people in South America seeing it. You have people in Europe seeing it. You have people in Asia seeing it. You have people in Ohio seeing it. I have people in high school, right, that are they're probably watching The Masked Singer or something, or whatever. They're probably watching, Secession or American Horror Story or whatever the fuck it is. If I can post a video to Facebook, like I posted a video the other day, uh, the video of Hannah when she was in town. And I didn't post my YouTube videos on Facebook for a long time. One reason, they were very personal. But for another, because, especially at that time, it was weird for people to post videos of filming themselves. Now it's been more accepted. But if I can post my videos and show people the way I'm living, show that I'm doing these readings, show the artists that I see, show us reading in Washington Square Park, show New York, downtown, what's going on in the streets. If somebody from my high school who is not some super performance artist in New York or LA or something sees that, or if an actor I was in a play with in college sees that, or if somebody I'm at an open mic sees that, or everybody goes on Facebook, right? And so it is a way to stay connected with Steve Buckingham, and that's, you don't even have to he doesn't have to like what I posted, or I don't have to like what he posted, or comment on it, or message, or anything necessarily. If I see what he posts, if he sees what I post, it's a way of influencing, and I mean that, now, right, when I'm listening to, Bob's live stuff, I'm taking it as inspiration. I'm saying, why don't I try what Bob is, look at the way Bob, he's 81 years old. He could have, called it a day and hung it up or whatever. But look at how just look at the way he imports and expands into all this different stuff. Theme Time Radio Hour, all his bootleg series, the bootlegs on YouTube, his live performances, his band, his book is coming out, right? He did that Shadow Kingdom thing. He's made films. So, he's an inspiration, and he doesn't get credit, I don't think, for being, an almost, Warhol-esque figure where, he's actually he's an artist in a lot of different ways. Not just as a poet or even musician, as a singer. Like I said, he's a filmmaker. There's a cohesion and an artistic infusion to the Bob Dylan brand that's really not that dissimilar from Warhol, except it's branded in a different way. Bob being this sort of cowboy, whatever, blues guy, poet of the city, rocker, who wants to follow Little Richard. Or any number of things, right? Well, obviously, we know Bob Dylan is incredibly multifaceted. That's part of the influence, right? Is especially in the pandemic, it just was, people, I think, felt so defeated in this and that. And so with these videos that I've been making, which are an hour and a half long, or I'm just throwing the whole fucking performance in, or this or that, it's yeah, because why the fuck not? I should have trusted myself the whole time. And I was looking for outer validation through things like likes and things. And I got discouraged because whatever reason. And now I'm you know what? Now that I'm 37, looking back, I'm I was right about a lot of stuff. And I should have had more confidence in what I was doing. And I'm not going to make that mistake anymore. I'm going to put out videos that I believe in. I'm going to, with the videos now, what I'm doing with my poem voiceovers, right? And even what I'm doing with filming performances and filming people in public, it's like now I'm writing stuff specifically to read on the show. And so it's becoming a more interesting, more watchable or substantial or something. But it's also like I think it's cool that the show is able to course through these different periods. And Bob Dylan is a great example, right, of an artist with all of these different periods. And you can see through lines in the same way like Picasso, right? Like he had all these different periods and like you see his hand through all of it. With Bob Dylan, it's like what he was doing was not totally different, but you know, the way he sounded in the early 80s is way different than he sounded in the early 60s, which is way different than he sounds now. And the songs he's writing are different. You know, he's written political songs. He's written songs straight out of the newspaper. He practically invented protest music in a way. And on and on and on. You know, going electric, blah, blah, blah. Folk rock, blues rock. You know, he was one of the early people developing a lot of this shit, taking folk music, playing it with guitars, bass, and drums. Him and the Byrds and shit basically sort of figured out how to do that together. The Beatles, the Byrds, Bob Dylan. And so, you know, not to compare or whatever, but you're just like thinking about that. Bob Dylan is just a guy, and he had to come up with ideas of how to do it. And so you start to see how he put it together, how he put his bands together. The band on Street Legal sounds a lot different than the band on Blood on the Tracks, which sounds a lot different than Planet Waves, which is the band, which sounds a lot different than, you know, the Knopfler stuff, which sounds a lot different than Oh Mercy, the Lanois stuff, but it also all sounds like him. I mean, he did a whole fucking decade of Frank Sinatra covers, for Christ's sakes. Like that is a period of his life. And so one of the things that's interesting about Joker Man is how they explore what may be his reasons, or what, you know, with Triplicate especially, they're not always right. I think they miss a lot of stuff. Like, I think Bob in the 80s, one of the reasons why he hit sort of this creative low point, if you want to think about it in that way, which I don't think about it in that way. I think everything Bob has ever done has been great, and his 80s stuff is just a different flavor. He was reflecting the times. He was friends with Jimmy Carter, for Christ's sakes, and then Reagan came in 1980 and was basically president until Clinton. And if you see what happens around when Clinton gets elected, Bob plays the inauguration, and he starts to have this kind of creative resurgence. It starts during the Bush era, Bush 1, but like Time Out of Mind and Love and Theft are really kind of Clinton era renaissance. I think just because the country was kind of rebounding from this Reagan, you know, I think we sort of forget the impact that had. You know, it wasn't that dissimilar from Trump to certain people, to hippies from the 60s, right? These were people coming from the 60s, and all of a sudden Ronald Reagan is the fucking president, who, right, was the governor of California and had the crackdown. That was they were trying to roll back the 60s. And so I think with Bob's music, you start to see it become alcoholic and cocaine and kind of corporate and slick, but not in a bad way. Those albums are all great. I mean, there's a few that I have not listened to that much, but I'm talking about Infidels, and I haven't listened to Empire Burlesque. I think is great, actually, from start to finish. I think it's very underrated. I think Under the Red Sky and Down in the Groove. Down in the Groove has got some great songs on it. Death Is Not the End and the covers. I was never really that big of a fan of Under the Red Sky, but I've started to listen to it again because Jokerman podcast kind of champions it. Once again, they just try to find the stuff that's just like the worst, most kind of abandoned stuff and figure out an angle. I can respect that. I think they're doing good work there. And so I've gone to Under the Red Sky with Fresher. They said, and I kind of agree with this, Stevie Ray Vaughan and Jimmy Vaughan it's basically a bunch of blues. Like that is a common thing through Bob's whole fucking career. He just does a lot of rock and blues. Pretty much from, bringing it all back, even before that, I'm sure as a teenager. Like, that's been just kind of a real, gravy train or something. It's just like, that's a standby for Bob. He can write electric blues and throw together some lyrics. And it's not everybody's favorite, but certain people are into Highway 61 and shit. To be honest, I never really liked Highway 61 as a song. I can respect it for what it is, but I don't know. People have just like, they actually like to listen to it. It's like, I don't know. It's just this rock and blues song. It's not that interesting. I'd rather listen to Queen Jane approximately, personally. Like Blonde on Blonde, like half the fucking album is just like these blues songs that are like, I don't know. They're not as good as the songs necessarily with chord changes, let's say. Bob is great at coming up with chord changes. I think that's something he doesn't get credit for. Maybe he rips them off from somebody else, but like he's actually written a lot of great songs just from melodic and chord change perspectives. He's able to do by himself what it took 4 Beatles to do. And he's been doing it for 60 years. His songwriting, I would say, from a melody, chord, and lyric point of view, is at least equal to Lennon and McCartney. I think Bob has got classic songs that are as good. I mean, the Beatles benefit from having perfect recordings. Bob has magical takes. But I think his songs have a lot more weight. And I think he's at least I actually do think he's equal to them in writing melodies and chord changes. I think he was influenced by them. I think he saw what the Beatles were doing with chord changes and thought, okay, I need to do that. And you use all the chords in the key, not just the fucking standard ones that you'd use, the 1, 6, 4, 5 or whatever. So, with All Gas No Brakes, the guy put out a hitchhiking zine, I guess, when he was like 19. And through that, he was able to get funding somehow. He got $40,000 to buy that RV that they travel around in. So he's traveling the interior of the country in a way that I would like to do, to be honest. I'd like to be able to take the message everywhere. That's the goal. So rubbing sticks and stones together here to start a fire is kind of the vibe. I never did that. I never hitchhiked. I don't know how he did it. Supposedly he's got like some kind of permanent like aphasia or something from, maybe it's not aphasia, but it's some kind of neurological leftover effect from like doing too many mushrooms. He said he did a lot of mushrooms when he was like 13. And so he constantly has like trails in his vision and certain like cognitive. And I think that may have something to do with, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that's the reason why he is able to do what he does, but I don't know. I mean, it's a common thread. Like Kavi Zahedi, right, is another, like, there's a fair amount of his work that's about doing psychedelics, either MDMA or whatever, tripping with coffee, right? He had a whole show about it. There are other examples. So maybe it does. I mean, I did mushrooms for the first time in college when I was like 23 or 24. And not that it like awakened me permanently or anything, but it did show me that there was something deeper, or I don't know, it definitely like calmed me down a lot for that evening and showed me a new perspective. And I do think doing acid like kind of refigures your brain in ways that like I think it brings clarity actually in a way. And so I don't know, when I see the all gas no brakes videos, I mean a lot of these videos, to be honest, they're lit as hell. They cut to the quick. They don't put anything in that isn't just like fire. And so they're pretty impressive actually. The editing is really good. The difference, I would say, and like I said, I'm not working against what All Gas No Brakes does, but like my show is more, the intention is not to sensationalize. Everything else is sensationalizing, and the appeal of All Gas No Brakes, or part of the appeal, there's a lot of things going on, but like he's interviewing people that are just like they're the extremes of our society, but they're also very present, right? We're all aware because they make a lot of noise and they get a lot of attention, and Trump put a spotlight on them. But they're there, right? Just these hoodlum, meth, juggalo, not to besmirch the juggalos or anything, their good name, but, there's a lot of wild, cantankerous, stubborn, offensive, provocative, troll ass, antagonists in this country who just want attention. And so why give them fucking attention? They'll say anything. They'll say anything to get attention. These flat earthers and shit. Like, I don't think, to me, my show is not putting a spotlight on these people. It's presenting an alternative. Like, not that everybody's able to live the way that I can live, but I think it's worth trying. Like, try to live with less money. Try to focus on art, beauty, honing in on definition, articulation, meaning, feeling, connection, meeting people, meeting artists, being with other humans, trying to do something sacred or talk to God. And by that I just mean elevate, get to something higher, bring your deepest self, get to some point where you feel like, with my open mic, I want people to feel like they are touching God. And by that, like, it's a metaphor. It's not a religious thing. It's more like this is the most powerful. This is like a deeper, because there are ways as people we can do that. Bob is a great example of somebody who's pretty miraculous with the way he's able to night after night just make new pieces out of his music, and he's a great example of somebody who brings it to the people, and he's bringing news, he's bringing oratory, he's bringing poetry. He's reciting poetry in a bold way across the world, right to people's faces, firsthand, and like, he's bringing a lot of power, and a lot of like consciousness. And so we need to do that for each other. It is about, life is this constant meditation in a way, and we are kind of coaching each other in a way, like, hey, do your best, it's fine. With my open mic, I want people to feel super comfortable, relaxed, like they can do their best, not like, ooh, I have to do better than everybody else. Like, everybody's gonna just do the best they can do, and we'll support it. And like QAnon shaman, it's like, this guy's done tons of psychedelics, he dresses crazy, and if you actually listen to what he has to say, he's an idiot. Like, all the people in the comments are like sympathetic to him. They're like, man, like, he got a bad rap. They were too hard on him. Like, he's going to be looked on as like a truth teller and this and that. Andrew they kept referring, he's like the Unabomber. I don't know if these are bots or real people, but they're sympathetic to the QAnon shaman. And it's like, this guy is a fucking idiot. He went on this whole thing about adrenochrome and how, because he asked him, Callahan, is that the guy's name? All Gas No Brakes asked him, like, you really think that the Clintons are doing this? And it's always Democrats. It's always Clinton, Podesta, who else? Biden, Obama. They're really running shit. The deep state. And they sacrifice children to drain their adrenochrome. It's bullshit. It's complete bullshit. Like, the guy's reasoning when he asked him how he knew this, he's like, read Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Adrenochrome, they talk about it in there. It's like, that's a fucking exaggerated, like, that's not a scientific text, right? Like, you can't just be like, oh yeah, the Clintons are slaughtering children to suck their adrenal glands because of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Like, that's not sound logic or reasoning or anything. So, like, the idea of doing a 42-minute long interview with that guy, like, that's the kind of shit that works on YouTube because those people are sympathetic to that. That's why I have no audience. I think it's important what All Gas No Brakes is doing, and I really have been enjoying their show. And to be honest, I do think it's like important journalism and like really well made and stuff. It's the show's not all that. The show is not all like, they're aware of that. They put the spotlight on other people too, and like a lot of the fun part of it is like watching the hip hop culture, watching like the shoe culture, going to the fashion stuff, because the guy who hosts it, you can tell, is kind of in touch with that. And so like you see these people who are like, for whatever reason, I don't know, they're culture makers, they're taste makers. And I don't think their stuff is totally whack or anything, but like a lot of the contemporary style, it's like, how dope is it? I don't know, like skater style and shit. It's just like everybody's favorite shit is like Rick Owens. And I like Rick Owens, but it's just like designer hoodies and designer sneakers and like it's very like casual. It's just like skater clothes, except it's like really expensive and well made or something. I don't even know. Is it even well made? I don't know. But it's like, it's got aesthetic value. Or like, how everybody wears like basketball fucking jerseys or whatever from like the 90s. Everybody wears like Space Jam jerseys or like hip hop kind of throwback culture from like the 90s. It's all about, with a lot of this vintage stuff, it's about rare, like they didn't make that much of it, or it's some super high-end label or something, or some kind of art label. So it's cool to see that. The O Block, that was super cool to see. To just like, just see people telling their story, I'd like to do more of that, but my show is more about, it's not really journalism, actually. I'm not trying to be a journalist. There's aspects of that in some ways. I mean, particularly during the Trump years, there was a little bit. But I don't really interview people. I don't go out with a microphone and interview people. I'd like to, but part of the point of my show is not breaking the fourth wall entirely. I want it to maintain its sense of being like an auto-fiction or like a cinematic kind of narrative. It's not really meant to be like Vice News. And like, I think what's interesting, part of what's interesting about Channel 5 is it's like, it's not really a vlog, but it kind of uses vlog-ish technique. It can't help but do that because it's firsthand and it's not shot like the local news. It doesn't have that interface. The way they insert the Cash App commercials is amazing. really smart. It just like comes up organically through all these crazy situations. Like the dude is street, you know, and I like that. I like that he's just out there with the fucking animals in this country. Not that I want to do that, but you know, you can't look away from that. It would be, I think part of the problem is there's not a bridge, right? The coastal elites, Hollywood, the academics, the woke media, the mainstream media, they all preach and think they're holier than thou, and they live in LA, Malibu, or, you know, New York, maybe San Francisco, the major metropolitan areas, let's say, but particularly the coasts. And then the flyover country, the interior of the country, being the Talladega, shoe drinking, butthole screaming, fuck Joe Biden, fuck Kyle Busch, fuck Joe Biden, fuck Joe Biden. You know, I think part of the problem, they want it, it's built in, I think, for them to resist. You know, even as they consume the Hollywood media and they like it, they also like don't want the politics. They want to believe they're religious. It's all, religion is a common thing in the videos. Either people reacting to their religious upbringing or super religious nutcase people. They did an episode about the Satanic Church, which was kind of interesting. Because the Satanic Church is more about defining itself against the evil of the actual church, which purports to be holy. And it kind of takes the character, not that I'm sympathetic necessarily to the Satanic Church, I also think that's kind of dumb in a way, but like, they deserve to say their piece, and like, it gave perspective on it. I think that's what the guy is doing that's most impressive to the people on YouTube. He's not, most comedy reporters that go out, they try to argue with the people, or they do what the Daily Show does, where they try to like one-up them and make them look stupid, basically. Whereas this guy doesn't do that. He just holds up his microphone and the people just go off. And the audience can kind of tell, but you kind of see more of their humanity. It's not dismissive of them. You know, and like, for better or for worse, I know politically we're not in a situation where people are willing to do that, but like, how do we do that? Is it necessary? And probably, or, you know, like when you see these fucking NASCAR people or these White Lives Matter people, and you hear what they have to say, you're not agreeing with them, but you're seeing their point of view. And it does kind of humanize them a little bit. And I'm not saying that, like, I agree or support anything about what they do, but part of what I think is important about this guy's show is he's showing everybody, and they're just saying their piece. And, like, I think there is this distance and there's this dissonance between the sides, the coast, the city, the country, the red, the blue, divisiveness. And that's obviously still happening on the internet. The internet's not really helping. It's kind of intensifying that. But it would be nice if we had a society that was a little more interwoven. There should be an interurban train system in this country so people from the cities can go to Kentucky or Alabama or, you know, New Orleans or Kansas City or Omaha or whatever it is, French Lick, Terre Haute, Portsmouth. You know, there should be, and people from Portsmouth and people from Springfield, Illinois, or Champaign, Urbana, or Duquesne, or what's the fucking Punxsutawney or Chattanooga or Altoona. They should be able to go to Europe or China or, you know what I mean? They should take the meth NASCAR people and send them to India, see what they think, you know? There just needs to be more traveling, more intermingling. And, you know, I realize traveling has been a part of my show, but really the only road trip episode across the country is the episode from 2015. And to be honest, I abbreviated that a lot. I mean, there's the episode where I drive to California, even that's abbreviated. In the early days of doing the show, I felt like I was on the road so much because I had driven across the country a number of times in the 2010s because my brother lived in LA and this and that. And so I just felt like, oh, I'm just saturated in that. But now looking back, I'm like, oh, I don't actually have that much footage of the interior of this country. And to be honest, a lot of it is just gas stations and fucking Walmarts and shit. If I were to do it, I would really love to do a tour of the country and just do slow travel and take a lot of time, do it over like months and months, and get a Toyota Camry, get something with good gas mileage, get a tent, stay where people would have you. Hopefully you'd have some money saved up. You could make money selling books, whatever, taking donations, and just do open mics everywhere. Meet the poets, meet the musicians, maybe do a comedy open mic, a poetry open mic, a music open mic in each town. Follow people on Instagram. I mean, well, that's the other thing about social media. I hate to say it, but it's the best way to network or just to keep track of the people. You know, like now when I meet people at an open mic, it's like, it's nice that there's a permanent, actually. It's nice that people don't disappear. I mean, that's a new thing, but like, you know, the people I met at open mics in LA, like Hannah, right? We've had, you know, of all the poets and maybe people I've had over the past few years, that's been like maybe my strongest relationship. And she lives in LA. I met her at her open mic. We stay connected over social media primarily. The clowns, they can see what I'm doing. The comedians, they can see what I'm doing. The poets, they can see what I'm doing. The musicians, they can see what I'm doing. People in Ohio can see what I'm doing. You know, if some high schooler or somebody I know who's an actor that I went to school with or was in a play with or something, somebody in my family, one of my cousins, maybe they'll see what I'm doing and go, that's pretty fucking cool. My Aunt Patty sent me a text the other day saying I'm her creative guru and she's got all these projects that she does. She does little painting and she's not giving herself enough credit because she's been on the committee of the Arts Festival and she's been like basically a huge part in helping run the Arts Festival, the Columbus Arts Festival, which is a big thing in Columbus, Ohio, and a great thing for fucking decades, literally since like the 90s. And so that's a huge contribution, right? Getting hundreds and thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, bands, artists selling their work over decades. And it's a beautiful thing. It's on the riverfront and there's all this food. And so, you know, she's an artistic connoisseur as far as I'm concerned. I would love to do a reading at that festival. I'd like to maybe talk to her about that. But, you know, if I can inspire her to like, you know, paint or just think of herself creatively, it's like, it's a good outlet. It's a good thing for everybody to have in their life. To me, you know, everybody looks at it as a competition and a job and this and that. How do you make money? How do you professionalize it? To me, it's like, it's a cathartic thing. And everybody, if you don't need it, you don't need it. But if you feel an urge to play music, to write poetry, to read your poetry, to be an actor, there's so much discouragement of that in our society. To put on a play, to film something, to start a TikTok. There's so much discouragement of that, or thinking that it's got to be a business or this or that. It's just like, it's a way of taking control of your own life. And that's what I really think it's about. I think our society wants to discourage people from doing that. You have to think, oh, my art isn't good enough. I'm not talented enough. I have nothing to say. What am I going to write about? This, that. There's a lot of bad artists out there. And the ones who are bad, a lot of them are the ones who people think are good. They're the ones who get the applause a lot of the times. The interesting artists get overlooked. And people don't really understand what they're doing. But I like those people. And I think more people, our society wants to shut down your pineal gland, your imagination, your sense of agency. That's why there's no trains. That's why you have to drive everywhere. That's why you can't drive anywhere. Because it's so expensive. Gas, insurance. Because they want people to be in these automated kind of consuming, just buying the message, drinking Monster Energy drink, drinking beer, eating McDonald's, and if you can do some kind of mind-blowing performance or just kind of expand people's possibilities a little bit, it's a slow process. For me it was like finding out about meditation, finding out about the pineal gland, finding out about diet stuff was a huge part of it. Changing my diet, stopping gluten, stopping dairy, learning social dynamics, learning to take action rather than be like, oh, I suck. I'm not funny enough to be a comedian. And then once you take action, then it's like figuring out how to make that work. It's not enough to just like, oh, I'm hitting these open mics. It's like, how do I make this good? Once you become present and once you get over certain obstacles or like insecurities, that's when you really like come into your own and take it in your hands. So that's what I feel like I've been doing that for a while, but like I said, it's been a slow process. I was always an artist, but in high school and college and shit, it was like about playing cover songs. We tried to make movies. They never really always got finished. The music stuff just always ended in drama or this or that. Acting, I was just in other people's movies. I didn't, my ideas for movies, eventually I just stopped doing it because people were so discouraging about it, So I want to be the opposite of that, Not that people like said my movies were bad. It was just one of these things where it's like, the technology really wasn't there at that point. To be honest, that was the big part. That's what stopped me from making movies. The technology was so much worse then. It got better, like literally like a couple years after. But in 2007, 8, 9, it was still like, I didn't even have a digital camera, I had mini DV, which you still had to like firewire in. It was still tapes. So DSLRs and iPhones have completely changed filmmaking and made it, you can just get a better look now. I mean, the movies that I made in 2007, 8, 6, they really don't look great. It's just like, it was an interesting pivot decade for filmmaking in particular, because celluloid was kind of dying, digital was coming in, but it was before iPhones and it was before YouTube really took off. So there was still the old way of doing things was like the prime way, but these new things were kind of burgeoning. And so we were trying to do things like have good lighting, or it was something that we were insecure about because we didn't have. You thought, oh, fuck, I got to make a movie like Bottle Rocket or the Brothers McMullen or fucking El Mariachi or something. You didn't think, that the lo-fi-ness was like a strength. I didn't really understand that till much later. I was always like trying to make a real movie and it was falling short because I was trying to make it seem like a real story where it's like the lo-fi-ness is actually kind of what's dope about it. When you're shooting with crappy equipment, right? And it's a particularly American maybe cultural thing. Uh, or I don't know. A lot of the better part of American culture, I feel, is lo-fi. It's the better side of kind of like embracing being low class. You know, like a lot of the thing about American culture about embracing low class is about like embracing stupidity and like violence or whatever. You know, like watching All Gas No Brakes, you can't help but think of like South Park, Grand Theft Auto, and Mike Judge. To be honest, it feels like watching a Mike Judge thing because there's just all these hillbillies, but they're human beings too. Like Mike Judge is able to humanize and show you like real people within this kind of like the satirical American society, which is kind of dumb, you know, and kind of like there's a beauty in it, but it's also like we could do so much better, you know. The America before the corporate thing kind of moved in is something I look to for inspiration. And so that's why the Beats or Bob Dylan or that kind of literature, Jack London, hobo literature in a way, is kind of important. Or the folk music too. Because it's like this was the stories of the land, of the people, of Appalachia. This is how it kind of most profoundly was told and expressed. So, but that's lo-fi, right? It's very ragged, but I'm right. That's America, right? That's the thing that I'm trying to sort of exemplify. But also, like I was saying, and maybe explaining it is lame, I guess it is, but it's the show is meant to be a little bit of an aesthetic. To me, I'm trying to posit an alternative. I'm not trying to make a super slick 12-minute like journalist comedy going to this event and like you know, to me it's more it's about it's a vlog, but it's not really a vlog, you know. It's like it's more just like a movie starring this character that I'm trying, you know, in the same way that like Jack Kerouac's novels, right? He writes about being on the road. He writes about six gallery reading and hiking and climbing mountains and meditating and the parties they had, drinking wine and dancing, listening to records, the Kicks, going to jazz, you know, listening to jazz, listening to Charlie Parker, you know, all of that. So it's in a certain way, it's positing a lifestyle. It's saying, hey, or at least that's how people took it. The youth of America said, let's do that. We don't want to be conformist, you know, corporate office people. We want kicks, we want music, we want to be smart. We don't want to die in a war. We don't want the atom bomb. We want love. We want God. We want life. We want experience. We want poetry. You know, we want shooting stars like fireworks and spiders or whatever he says. The only ones for me are the ones who are mad to live, you know. I think there's something to be said. So, you know, with digital, I sort of utilize it selectively. I don't embrace it totally because I want to live in the real world and I want to live face to face in that kind of like old weird America. I think you can sort of bricolage an alternative cultural tunnel if you know, there are interesting things that happened aesthetically in this country. It's not just all loud college football, camouflage guns, shotgunning beers, stupidity. Like, even in Columbus, there's fucking a high culture that isn't necessarily leavened by some kind of like populist accessibility or something. Columbus Art Museum, Wexner Center, whatever. So I don't know. I don't want the whole country to just be like this big South Park spectacle, in your face, Rambo, guns, like, to me, like these artists in City Life, the beat artists Taylor Mead, Herbert Huncke, Edward Dahlberg, Yoko Ono, all the people I mentioned in that poem. Those are the people that I'm trying to like imitate. They lived in the United States. They were artists in the United States. Rauschenberg, Jasper Johns, John Cage, Ted Berrigan, Eileen Miles. So it would be nice if there was more power, to me, by showing, here's how I live. I'm rent controlled. I walk around, I go to the park, I talk to people, I look at stuff, I write, I go to readings. So I'm looking, I'm listening, I'm writing, I take what I wrote to the reading and I say it. I meet people at the reading, I meet other poets, they come to this reading. It's sort of, you're exemplifying, here's what you can do with your life. Start a band, do shows, do house parties, move into a big communal art house, go on tour, do free jazz, go nuts, smoke weed all the time, walk around, look at stuff, don't work, avoid work as much as possible. If you're going to do work, go to Poetry Project, like, I want to show Poetry Project, I want to show East Village, I want to show that whole heritage. That's been, I don't look at anything as like failing, but like my big plan coming back here was to make the Lives of the Poets show with the East Village Poets. I sort of failed doing that. My show mostly was just about solitude in Manhattan and then the performance scene. Basically, that's been the narrative arc over the last year. I haven't actually gotten to do the kind of like soap opera, not a soap opera, but just like, filming poets talking. That's really all I wanted to do. Filming poets interacting at parties, on rooftops. So I haven't really gotten to do exactly, in a small way I did, but it didn't really, it's been beautiful and I'm very pleased with what it is, but like, it didn't being in this situation especially, it felt like you have every opportunity. It was just up to me to take it as far as I could have, right? And so I've only taken it this far. I don't know. I'm a year behind. I should have been where I am now a year ago. Should I look at my time here did I waste it? Did I fail? I think what I've accomplished is pretty cool. And I'm proud of it. It's basically what I imagined. Like I said, maybe it's not quite as come to fruition, but like, there's a lot of poets in it. Mike's in it, the festival's in it, Donnie's in it, fucking all the people who have done readings are in it, Don Yorty's in it, the gala's in it, all the System Lord stuff is in it, going to Connecticut's in it, like, I'm just trying to get as much experience in as possible and get it all down. And then later we can sort of, figure out, remember it in tranquility and enjoy it. I'm already starting to, thinking back on like the Mercury Lounge show. That was really cool. And going to Connecticut. It has been a great summer. The Dime Store shows. Doing all the shows in August. I wish I would have done more, but doing Bowery Electric, for Christ's sake. I could have done more, but I don't know. I mean, to be honest, doing open mics is different. Like when you book a gig, it does have a little bit of an import. I guess not least of which because you have more time. When you're on an open mic, you really only get 3 to 5 minutes or whatever. Whereas like Bowery Electric, I played for half an hour. System Lord shows half an hour, 40 minutes. The open mic was almost 2 hours. Like, so we got to hit 88 miles per hour. We're doing pretty good. Just got to keep it moving. Wish me luck. I do kind of want to go to 3 hours. I'm only 4 minutes away. Let me just do 3 hours. Yeah, the technology is just an extension. It's a way to draw people into the shows and to extend the message. By doing this, I don't know if anybody's ever going to watch this, but 26 people watched the video with Hannah. I think I had a video last month that got like 30 some views. That's not just like 30 some randos on the internet. That's 30 some people probably that I know. I mean, there might be some randos, but like, if people I know see it and they think, oh, this is kind of interesting, I'm going to go out and do some shows. I'm going to, work harder to put my stuff out there. I'm going to record some music today. I'm going to get back at, I'm going to go to an open mic. I'm going to, like, that's part of the, I think thinking about it more as like what good can I do and what function am I serving and what am I communicating? That's like how I'm starting to think about it. It's like it's really all communication. And so like by doing this stuff you're communicating to people a certain passion for life in a way of living authentically and living following your dream. And, I'm not doing it by doing regional theater or playing on cruise ships or, getting an MFA and going that whole way or, doing student films. Like, to me, it's like, I'm so influenced by the poets that I've studied, and with that there is this kind of inherent just like it's tied up in your whole life, right? The way that you make there is a poetics, and so you develop a poetics that is almost like a philosophy of or an ethics in a way. It's like I see the way the world is, right? I see the gas stations, I see the fucking cars, I see the aggression, I see the tattoos, I see the guns, I see the screens, I see the sports, right? The Marvel movies, even the indie culture, Etsy, whatever. Going to flea markets, going to Brooklyn, going to Ace of Cups flea market. It's like you see what's out there, and it's like I'm just trying to live the way that feels like the most ethical, right, in this moment where like the world is dying, right? Pollution, the environment, violence, political polarization, ignorance, willful ignorance, mass dissemination of ignorance, brainwashing, Fox News, state Russian state media. You know, I was watching this. They were showing Russian state media. They were interviewing people. I think this was All Gas No Brakes, and the people won't even hear anything bad about Putin. I don't believe it. I'm a Putin loyalist. And then they show Fox News, and it's Tucker Carlson say, "Why are we mad at Putin? What did he do to us?" And it's like, it's all propaganda, right? And yet the Fox News people are the ones that are like, "I'm not brainwashed. I'm not going to wear a mask," and all this shit. And so, with my writing, how I do my writing, going through the day, writing things down that occur to me, things that people say, uh, beautiful things. It's really just about noticing, presence. It's about awareness. It's about gratitude, appreciating life, appreciating nature, appreciating other people. By recording it, by making a movie out of it, it is a way of savoring it, but also like trying to say something about the moment we're in, the time we're in. You know, by writing poems that speak to that and reading them on the show, by doing this, by filming conversations with people like my dad or whatever and hearing their opinions. So it's a way of like, but I want it to happen naturally, and I want it to unfold like a zine almost, or like outsider art. I don't want it to unfold like, you know, it's hard copy or something. And I think if you're creative, you know, children are creative. Look, they're always drawing, they're singing songs, they're dancing. They know what life is about. We just lose touch with that. And so, in a certain way, I guess that is like how you could characterize what I'm doing. Is like trying to prolong that kind of magic, imagination. I think you can do both. It's not like you're avoiding adult responsibilities or you're not an adult. It's about finding out how to. That's what being a master is. Like, you're an adult, you're saying things that like really move people and like change them, hopefully, like Godard. But you're applying the kind of magical, imaginative, creative pixie dust of chance and arrangement and what have you into something that really makes life worth living, or like gives you a bigger pop than you might. I mean, I think reality is its own trip and its own art and its own thing that you appreciate. And so with the phone and the show and all of my work, it's about bringing the life into the window of that, and making your life an art, making conversation an art, really listening to people, really going deep, really trying to be smart, funny, witty, get to the bottom of things, talk about politics, talk about whatever, religion, spirit, craft, poetry. I mean, poetry, right? Just that in and of itself is like such a kind of sacred, or like, you know, pretentious, or it's a vulnerable thing maybe to talk about. But living in the sacred, living with meaning, and trying to create light, trying to create good energy, the best ways that you know how. You know, I'm doing my best. Really. You know, I've tried it a lot of different ways. So this is what's worked and got me this far. Now that I'm like applying my own ideas and stuff, I'm ready to take off. Like Chet Hanks.